Focus. Use concentration techniques for a sharp memory. Written by Dave Farrell. Narrated by Doug Green. Chapter 1. Why is focusing essential to our well-being? Asking yourself why focus is crucial is a natural thing. Most people at one time or another have wondered about this problem, but fortunately, the answers are rather easy. If you're curious about what makes focus such an important part of most people's lives, here are several reasons. Making focus a more crucial part of your life. Whether it's your personal life or your professional life you're concerned about, it is good to recall that you cannot do much without a little concentration and focus. Several of the reasons why focus is so essential include: without focus, you can't even think. Focus has the capability to change everything about your life. Focus gives you chances you have never ever previously had. It broadens your understanding. It allows you to be more productive. You can achieve success much quicker. It helps you achieve your goals. You also make better choices when you're focused, in part simply because it gives you a better sense of direction. It keeps you motivated, and it is a lot easier to improve your sense of focus than you may think. Truth be told, if you want to add more focus to your life, try the following suggestions. Keep your priorities up to date. Try to focus on only one thing at a time. Read about effective people. Slow down a little and make your life easier. Practice arguing with yourself to get some valuable answers. Think about past choices, both good and bad. Ask yourself why you are pursuing certain goals. Everyone is good at something, and once you turn something you love into your vision and purpose in life, it is much easier to end up being more focused. You also have to know in your heart what you mean, because your values and beliefs are extremely important when you're trying to focus more and achieve certain objectives. What about in the office? Maybe more than wherever else, focus is important in the workplace. If you cannot focus at work, you just can't get things done. Whether you are a short-term worker or the CEO of the company, you need to focus to be effective. If you'd like to enhance your focus at your job, try the following methods. Ensure you are technologically savvy. Make certain your personal workspace is organized and cool. Have your mind on work and nothing else. Remember the 4 parts of organization: perform, process, present, time-wise, and productivity. Whenever you ask yourself why is focus essential, you need to be prepared for the answers, just because they aren't always the answers you were expecting. If you asked 100 effective company people what their guidance is concerning their success, lots of them would react with one word: focus. Focus is simply a should if you want to be successful in the office. If you are having trouble focusing your mind, it could be simply because you need to change some features of how your brain works. These changes include getting rid of everything in your head that isn't crucial at the moment, because focusing on the here and now is important when it comes to the proper focus. And don't worry, because the more you do this, the better you will get at it. Focus and self-discipline. Of course, focus is closely related to self-discipline, which is why you usually read short articles that point out both of these concepts at the exact same time. When you think of the barriers to the process of concentrating on something, the word self-control is normally one of the reasons why people cannot focus. Lack of self-control results in absence of focus, because the two have more in common than you think. People typically can't focus because they are distracted by other things, which is the reason that clearing your mind of unnecessary things is such a great idea when you're attempting to focus. Actually, believe it or not, you can learn how to ignore diversions and control a mind that roams. It just takes practice, because anybody can do it if they try. Other things that can help you focus are understanding when to concentrate on the problem at hand and when to focus on the bigger picture. Try to hold a train of idea even when you get disrupted. Try to follow through on a job without having to request for increasingly more directions. Keep up with a discussion and follow all spoken directions. Things like these are the biggest key to mastering the art of concentration. Aside from practicing the above methods, here are some more pointers for improving your focus and self-discipline. Prepare your schedule ahead of time. Don't multitask unless you really need to. Declutter both your desk and your mind. Take breaks when you need them. Forgive yourself and go on when you ruin. Reward yourself when you do very well. Control both your energy as well as your time. Whether you are an organization executive, a full-time mother, or a student, you need focus and have self-control if you are going to get things done. Fortunately, everybody can accomplish this with a little practice and concentration. You have it in you to do this. All you have to do is look inside of yourself and choose this is how you wish to live. Just what is focus? No conversation of focus can be complete without describing what it means to use the term focus. Basically, focus is having clear objectives and committing your work or personal life to attaining those goals and objectives. You have to make the right decisions at all times, and each decision you make needs to be in relation to your objectives and goals. Think of being focused as being in the moment and nowhere else. When you're focused, you are focusing only on the goal or job at hand and nothing else. You have to consider everything else irrelevant for the moment so that you can commit your concentrated attention to whatever you really need to do to accomplish your goals. The opposite of being focused often spells disaster. Whenever people aren't focused, their lives are dictated by things like whatever is the simplest job, their sense of urgency, and even jobs that just make them look the busiest. Those are the people who concentrate on irrelevant tasks and wind up wasting more time than they should, and this gets those people nowhere at all. Life is loud, busy, and busy these days, which is the reason that so many people are now having problems focusing. Ask yourself, why is focusing essential? Then consider ways you can enhance your focus. Here are some other answers to this all-important question. When you concentrate on a particular job, your brain permits you to focus on that alone. Much better focus also means better efficiency and less tension. Focusing properly means your subconscious will do the effort for you. Focusing permits you to get jobs done faster and with less errors. You can think a lot better when you are more focused. You don't have to let a hectic lifestyle keep you from being concentrated on what you really need to do. Whether you're a teacher, an author, or a seller, focus is important in your life if you want to accomplish anything. It just does not make sense to be unfocused, because everyone is happier, more productive, and is enjoying greater wellness once they learn how to focus correctly. How to start? So you're asking yourself, why is focus essential, but you've never even been focused yourself? No problem. There are, as a matter of fact, ways to help you begin being more focused in your life regardless of where you are now. Below are a few of those ways. Create a comprehensive plan for success. Do not forget to have a fallback. Plan what you will do if you slip up. Don't give up if you get discouraged. Life is filled with those who are making mistakes, and if you're new to the art of focusing, you're going to make those mistakes. Not to worry, though, because you can simply get up and begin all over again. Nobody is 100% focused each minute of the day, but the more you practice these focus-oriented pointers, the easier they will become, and the better you'll get at them. Relating to the plan, it must be as detailed as possible. Why is this the case? The answer is simple. The more detailed your plan is, the more you can focus on it because everything will be laid out step by step. This gives you less of a chance that your mind will roam simply because you'll know at any given time what you're supposed to be doing. When you're trying to focus for the first time, or even refocus on something in your life, it also helps to keep sight of why you are doing what you're doing in the first place. Keep in mind that development isn't an inaccessible goal. Make a list of interruptions and go over them one at a time to try and find out how to remove them from your mind. Figure out if something deeper is going on that's keeping you distracted. If you discover something larger that is the true reason that you can't focus, you need to find out a way to deal with it. It could be something physical and even mental, but as soon as you deal with the real problem, you are far more likely to get better at the focusing game. It also can help a lot if you find a good way to soothe your mind. Routine exercise, healthy eating, and regular meditation all help. The truth is, the calmer your mind is, the more you can deal with the diversions that are usually a part of daily life. A calmer mind also makes it easier to concentrate on things. And since a well-cared-for body accompanies a calmer and more orderly mind, taking care of your body is essential when you're trying to improve your focus. Train your brain to focus. Your brain is not a muscle, but it works similar to your other muscles. It infers that over time, you can train your brain to focus better. How do you do this? You can start by concentrating on one thing and just one thing only for 5 minutes at a time. Keep in mind, no cluttering of the mind. Focus only on one thing. After you've mastered these 5 minutes, strive 10, then 15, and so forth. When you get up to 40 minutes of pure concentration, you'll have prospered in becoming more focused. It's also better if you practice this exercise first thing in the early morning when your brain is refreshed and not filled with unnecessary scrap. This exercise may be hard when you initially start, but it won't be long before you will be performing it with ease. What could be other ways to train your brain to focus better? Here are some. On your list of tasks, do the creative things initially. Choose the toughest jobs during your best times of the day, and only you know when those are. Whether you're an early bird or a night owl, you should do the bulk of your focusing throughout the hours where you are the most alert. After all, not all work is completed throughout work hours. Much of what you'll do will be achieved in the comfort of your home, and only you can know which time of the day works best. Mostly, don't feel guilty if you do not attain the results you were hoping for rapidly. Worry and guilt will get you nowhere. Furthermore, guilt, concern, and guts are all things that can be learned or unlearned, so focus on acquiring courage and eliminating guilt and stress anytime you can. Just like balancing or dancing, focus is a performance-based skill that can be learned with time. You can hope that it will happen somehow, but that will not make it a reality. Rather, focus on ways that you can improve your focus. This generally includes exercises that train your brain to focus better, which is a skill that you can use to improve your life after that. Chapter 2. How to enhance your concentration and memory. Here are 10 basic methods that anyone can use to improve the amount of info that they take in and remember. 1. Get lots of sleep. If you read a book or article when very worn out, you will forget the majority of what you have read. Sleep improves attention and concentration, and therefore the registration of info. And sleep is also needed for memory consolidation. 2. Focus. You can't take in info unless you are focusing, and you can't remember information unless you are taking it in. It helps if you are actually fascinated by the material, so try to develop an interest in every little thing. As Einstein said, there are only 2 ways to live your life. One is like absolutely nothing is a miracle. The other is like every little thing is a miracle. 3. Involve as many senses as you can. For example, if you are being in a lecture, write several notes. If you read a chapter, read it aloud to yourself and inject some drama into your performance. 4. Structure info. If you really need to remember a list of active ingredients, think of them under the subheadings of starter, main, and dessert, and envision the number of active ingredients under each subheading. If you need to remember a phone number, think of it in regard to the first 5 digits, the middle 3 digits, and the last 3 digits, or whatever works best. 5. Process information. If possible, recap the material in your own words, or reorganize it so that it is easier to learn. With more complex material, try to comprehend its meaning and value. Shakespearean actors find it a lot easier to recall their lines if they can comprehend and feel them. If it has to be this way, concentrate on the important things, or the larger picture. In the words of Oscar Wilde, one should take in the color of life, but one should never remember its specifics. Information are always vulgar. 6. Relate information to what you already know. New info is much easier to recall if it can be contextualized. A recent research study looking at the role of high-level procedures found that chess knowledge predicts chess memory of the design of a particular chess game, even after controlling for chess experience. 7. Use mnemonics. Tie info to visual images, sentences, and acronyms. For instance, you may remember that your hairdresser is called Sharon by visualizing a rose of Sharon or Sharon fruit. Or you might remember the colors of the rainbow and their order by the sentence, Richard of York gave battle in vain. Many medics remember the symptoms of varicose veins by the acronym AEIOU: aching, eczema, itching, edema, and ulceration. 8. Rehearse. Sleep on the information and evaluate it the following day, then examine it at increasing periods until you feel comfortable with it. Memories fade if not rehearsed, or are overlain by other memories and can no longer be accessed. 9. No context. It's much easier to obtain a memory if you find yourself in a similar circumstance or comparable mindset to the one in which the memory was laid. Most people with low mood tend to remember their losses and failures while ignoring their strengths and accomplishments. If one day you pass the cheesemonger in the street, you may not, without her normal apron and range of cheeses, instantly recognize her, despite the fact that you are otherwise familiar with her. You might even say something like, "Ma'am, please remind me, where do I know you from?" If you are preparing for a test, try to recreate the conditions of the exam. For example, sit at a similar desk at a similar time of day and use ink on paper. 10. Be as creative as possible. Strange or uncommon experiences, facts, and associations are much easier to remember. Because unfamiliar experiences stick in the mind, journeys and holidays give the impression of living, and, by extension, of having actually lived for longer. Chapter 3. How to concentrate better when you're working at home. Lots of us are attempting to work from home, perhaps with kids jumping around. If you're having a hard time to focus, here are some suggestions. 1. Understand the developed basis of why it's hard to focus when dealing with threats and uncertainty. Anxiety and unpredictability make us feel on edge. They're states of high alert. If you think in evolutionary terms, being able to quickly redirect our attention away from the hazard and deeply focus on other subjects and jobs would not have been valuable for our survival. For this reason, under conditions of hazard and unpredictability, we're wired to find it hard to reroute our attention and get soaked up thinking of safe subjects, meaning read an enjoyable novel or a dense document for work. In evolutionary terms, your on-edge, hyper-alert feelings and your distracted cognitive state are a function, not a bug. 2. Recognize that you're missing the hints that help you focus. I actually work from home all of the time. Thus, I have routines of working that help trigger my ability to focus. My brain knows that me sitting in bed and opening my computer system means I will do a number of hours of writing and/or reading studies. If you usually work in an office, the routines and cues you have at work that signal to your brain that you're going to be beginning a session of concentrated work like taking the elevator up to your office aren't there. This is another aspect that is very likely to be making it hard for you to focus and focus on work. 3. Consider not trying to work at 100%. Just 60% may be more sensible. It always turns out that way anyway. Some of your cognitive and emotional resources right now are being utilized handling the fact that we're all facing a pandemic. It is rather impractical to believe that the formula will look like this. You at 100%, minus whatever cognitive and psychological resources you're using dealing with coronavirus, equals you're still at 100%. People in emergency situation response roles could be able to operate at near to 100% just because they are conditioned and trained for this, and because they are straight focused on instant needs. If you're doing knowledge work unassociated to the crisis, your cave person brain is most likely pretty confused about why you're asking it to continue just as if nothing is happening. Pick your own number for what you expect your functional capacity to be, but don't pick 100%. 4. You should try alleviating into work with some admin jobs rather than attempting your hardest work first. If I'm having a tough time settling to concentrate on exertion, specifically if I have been staying away from it, I usually find the simplest way is to use straightforward tasks to help settle me into it. If you're having a tough time focusing, try easy, straightforward tasks for 30 to 60 minutes first. 5. Do not try to anticipate whether you'll have an efficient work session. I've learned a lot from tracking my productivity that the state of mind I start my work in doesn't determine how my session of work goes. In case I am feeling restless or vulnerable, it typically just takes me a bit longer to find my rhythm, but I am still just as likely to do good work. If you can begin with your deep work, then your conditioned cues connected with being in a focusing state, as opposed to those that kick it off, will tend to take over. It may take 15 to 30 minutes after you begin deep work to feel like it is working out. This resembles how, if you go for a run when you're not feeling like it, you're likely to begin feeling good after several minutes. For example, if you write reports for your job and you have written lots of them, then once you enter into the flow, your brain knows what order you generally write the different sections in and so forth, and that conditioning will take over. 6. Give yourself a very good healing period after working. If you've effectively focused on deep work for a couple of hours, give yourself some good recovery. If you have kids at home, your healing could need to be with your children. For example, one of my healing regimens is to draw with my kid once a day. We generally cut an image from a magazine for motivation. We've also been practicing camping with a camping tent in the yard, complete with marshmallows, etc. Other alternatives are things like jigsaw puzzles or baking. Do not think you need to escape your kids to unwind. You should try creativity activities with them. This 20-minute corrective yoga regimen is one of my go-tos for when I really need sturdy recovery. Restorative yoga is quite different from exercise-orientated yoga. It's basically supported lying down. In some cases, my kid will do it with me. At times, she'll jump on me while I am trying to do it. 7. Don't watch or read news for hours and hours every day. Since coronavirus is a fast-moving story, it's easy to understand that you might want to be watching or reading coverage of it for a number of hours a day. Still, watching and reading 3, 4, 5, or 7 hours a day, as some people are, is excessive. Extreme news direct exposure won't help you focus on work. 8. Neglect messages that you should use your time at home to be hyperproductive. If you want to do some projects while you're at home, that's fine. If you'd like to read some books you've been trying to navigate to forever, that's fine. If you wish to declutter your linen cupboard, that is fine. Do what helps you. Still, don't put unneeded pressure on yourself to get things done beyond what you need to, if that does not feel handy. In some cases, it is better to resist messages that the solution to any dilemma, personal or common, is to be hyperproductive. Chapter 4. The 4 Major Motivations. Motivation is difficult to come by. There's always another task, another project, another objective. And any inspiration you manage to scrape together for one thing is missing for the next. But inspiration is not a resource, at the very least, not in the way the language surrounding motivation suggests. Inspiration is a reaction to stimuli, and that reaction isn't always the same. Various stimuli activate different parts of the brain and encourage us toward efficiency in different ways. So rather than longing for inspiration or searching for more inspiration, it might be more valuable to think of the different kinds of motivators we experience and what is going on in our brains when we experience them. The fundamental science of inspiration. For many years, neuroscientists and psychologists have developed that we usually experience inspiration when dopamine, a neurotransmitter that communicates signals between brain cells, is released and takes a trip to the nucleus accumbens. The nucleus accumbens is a region of the brain that mediates reward behavior. So when dopamine reaches the nucleus accumbens, it solicits feedback on whether an advantage or a bad thing is going to happen. As Kimberly Schaffenbuhl, program director of UNC Executive Development, explains, this prediction prompts us to react in ways that either lessen a forecasted threat, the bad, or take full advantage of an anticipated reward, the good. So if you get an email from your boss with a new assignment, dopamine hits up the nucleus accumbens to form a prediction of what will happen if you do the task or not, or if you do it well or inadequately. With that forecast in place, you'll either act to increase the likelihood of reward, payment, praise, sense of achievement, or reduce the probability of punishment, demotion, screaming, sense of failure. Let's take a look at our 4 motivators for efficiency and see what truly drives us. Imaginative expression. In writing this book, I'm inspired by creative expression. It gives me a chance to flex my creative muscles and express myself through prose and storytelling. But what's going on in my brain while I am writing? When you're inspired to productivity via creative expression, it's likely that one of 2 things is going on. 1. You are in the zone. This is the colloquial term that's being used to define an uninhibited creative flow in which it appears as if you're not even thinking about what you're doing. When you're in the zone, an area of the brain called the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, DLPFC, becomes less active. Research conducted by neuroscientists Dr. Charles Lim and Dr. Alan Braun connects the DLPFC to planning, inhibition, and self-censorship. And that makes sense, thinking about that those qualities are almost antithetical to uninhibited creative flow. When moderating a rush of ideas, there is no time to evaluate or organize. Planning and censoring only obstruct your goals. 2. You're systematically shaping. Most creativity results in difficult, complex, tedious work, and at the time of these pre- or post-zone creative sessions, activity in the DLPFC can actually ramp up, specifically if you are examining or editing. That is simply because creative expression generally involves a balance of uninhibited flow and methodical sculpting. Similar to the well-known piece of writing wisdom, write intoxicated, modify sober, a good book or moving song is usually the item of both stream of consciousness inspiration and meticulous workmanship. Conclusion: being motivated by creative expression can lead to an arranged delivery of new, unexpected, and imaginative ideas. Financial incentive. It would be deceitful to say that I'm not also motivated by payment. Our brains look extremely different when inspired by monetary settlement, and just as different types of creative expression are associated with different neurochemical processes, so are different kinds of financial rewards, specifically wage versus added reward. 1. Motivation from income. Money can definitely inspire us to performance. Anybody with a job can tell you that. However, extrinsic motivators like wage work best when paired with other more intrinsic motivators. Edward Deci, a psychologist at Rochester University, says that we have 3 psychological needs that help supplement monetary inspiration: autonomy, proficiency, and the sense of feeling connected to others. Wage alone does not motivate us, Deci says. Truth be told, he argues, overemphasis on monetary benefit undermines independence, and because of that intrinsic motivation. 2. You're methodically shaping. Most employers offer added monetary incentives such as commission and bonuses. If you perform to X level, you get Y additional money. Even if you're already motivated by a healthy balance of intrinsic and extrinsic elements, things change when these performance-based financial rewards are introduced. In a study led by Dan Ariely of Duke University, scientists asked individuals to play games that tested memory, creativity, and motor skills. They would each get a monetary reward based on their performance, but one group was offered a little reward, another a medium reward, and another a huge benefit. The study found that individuals who were offered the largest amount of cash performed the worst. Ariely concluded that while performance-related benefits normally increase activity in parts of the brain involved in inspiration, there comes a tipping point. When the potential reward is too large, it can weaken performance by making people overly focused or psychologically aroused. Conclusion: being motivated by an excessively large monetary incentive can lead to a mistake-riddled item, while a reasonably sized monetary incentive, paired with intrinsic motivators, can lead to something more thoughtful and polished. Curiosity and learning. Interest and the desire to learn are simply intrinsic motivators. According to Domenico and Ryan, we are inspired towards productivity by curiosity and learning when we encounter new kinds of stimuli that present ideal difficulties or optimal inconsistencies with a person's extant knowledge. We want to investigate things that we don't understand, or things that run counter to our experiences. This clarifies why, for example, someone may hear a ringing payphone and answer it. So, what's going on in the brain here? Dopamine, as with nearly all kinds of inspiration, plays an essential role when inspired by curiosity and learning. And dopamine nerve cells tend to show two modes of activity: tonic and phasic. When dopamine remains in tonic mode, neurons fire at a consistent rate, showing what Domenico and Ryan call the general strength of animals' probing, seeking tendencies. When we are in tonic mode, we may be walking around smelling things, taking a look at things, listening to things. Normal human stuff. In phasic mode, nerve cells experience brief bursts of activity or inactivity in reaction to specific stimuli, resulting in a boost or decline of dopamine, generally lasting some seconds. Whereas in tonic mode, you could be forced to glance at an uncommon-looking tree. A strange noise from its branches might activate phasic mode, and suddenly you're inching to that tree, eager to find the source of the noise. Conclusion: being motivated by interest and learning can result in a more thorough investigation of ideas and a more expanded final product. Worry. What if I woke up thinking this post was due into my editor tomorrow, only to recognize the due date was in 2 hours? Worry would ensue, and that fear would encourage me to do whatever it took to reduce the possibility of that bad thing happening. Worry usually drives you to productivity because you want to keep from a risk or penalty. And while a due in 2 hours fear could not reach the level of fear you experience when a grizzly charges at you, it does trigger a similar neurochemical reaction. The amygdala, a part of the brain critical in the development of memories, processing emotions, and making decisions, goes crazy. And when it discovers danger, it sends your body into fight-or-flight mode, at the time of which survival is prioritized above all else. But simply because you're being efficient in this moment of fear does not mean you're producing something of quality. When fear kicks in, most of the brain's resources are diverted from their normal jobs to perform that survival function. So when fear pirates your brain, it can endanger your choice-making. Worry might inspire you to work harder or work more, but when fear is the dominant incentive, intrinsic inspiration is absolutely nowhere to be found. There is no room for creative expression or interest in learning, and without them there's no desire to look for new info or let ideas flow through you naturally. So, while the work could be completed, it won't be as well-rounded. More likely, it will just expose your seriousness to just get it done. Conclusion: being inspired by fear can result in a lower quality, though without delay provided, item. Each of these motivators has the capability to propel you towards productivity, but the result of that efficiency will not always be the same. But if we recognize why we're inspired to performance, we may be able to identify how we work best and what kind of inspiration produces the best results. Chapter 5. Conceptualizing is destroying your creativeness. In a common brainstorming session, you try to solve a difficulty by collecting a team to create new ideas. While it sounds logical, this approach is actually swarming with problems like social loafing, cruising on others' contributions, and social anxiety about having your ideas judged. That can impede original thinking and stifle introverted team members, according to a short article released in Harvard Business Review. Instead of looking for answers, you should be conceptualizing for questions, says Hal Gregerson, executive director of the MIT Leadership Center and MIT Sloan professor. The very best leaders in this world ask better questions, creating conditions and situations that cause them to be wrong or awkward and silent, he says. When that happens, they wind up being almost forced to ask things others would not ask. Coming up with questions enables you to check out an issue more deeply, pushing past biases and arriving in uncharted territories, says Gregerson, author of Questions Are the Answer. He uses a 3-step process that he calls question burst that establishes conditions to harness the power of questions. Set the stage. Start by recognizing a challenge you care deeply about, like growing your organization into a new category or going into a prospective collaboration. If it makes your heart beat quicker, it is most likely a good candidate, Intuit Chairman and CEO Brad Smith told Gregerson. You can do a question burst on your own, but bringing others into the process will give you access to a broader knowledge base and help you maintain a positive mindset. It's best to include 2 or 3 people who have no direct experience with the problem and whose cognitive style or worldview is starkly different from yours, says Gregerson. They will come up with surprising, compelling questions that you would not, because they have no practiced ways of thinking of the issue and no investment in the status quo. Once you have gathered your team, describe the issue in 2 minutes, quickly sharing why you're stuck. Providing a short introduction forces you to frame it in a way that will not direct questioning. Then share Gregerson's 2 rules. No one can answer any of these questions. Nobody can clarify exactly why you are asking the question. Both of those things walk the other person into a corner about how you already see the problem, which is the reason why you are stuck anyhow, says Gregerson. Brainstorm the questions. Set a timer for 4 minutes and generate as many questions as possible about the challenge. The focus is on quantity over quality, and the group needs to pursue at least 15 questions. The more unexpected and provocative the questions are, the better they are, Gregerson says. Record them verbatim. When dealing with big business, I usually notice that senior leaders in particular find it extremely tough to withstand offering answers, even for 4 minutes, when people begin throwing out questions, he says. This impulse is comprehensive and not just for senior executives. In a hierarchy, any manager's failure to have all set answers might be perceived as an embarrassing stumble. Gregerson says 4 minutes isn't a very hard rule, but the reduced time does put pressure on participants to stay with the questions-only rule. It also helps address attention span issues. Recognize a resulting quest. After the question burst is over, examine the questions, looking for those that cause you to recognize you're a bit wrong or make you a bit uncomfortable. Those are most likely offensive questions that were poking at a presumption, says Gregerson. It's like, I didn't quite see it that way. Maybe if I got a much better answer to this question, I could get a resolution. Questions that make you uncomfortable are a little more emotional, says Gregerson. It is like there's something maybe even unconscious going on here, but it's signifying to me this is a crucial question, he says. Then make these particular questions part of your quest. These are questions that are worth getting answers to, says Gregerson. Put yourself in some conditions that will get you better answers and better questions. Talk to some people who are different from you. And put yourself in places that are a bit uncommon, so as to continue to get a lot better answers and options. Commit to pursuing at the very least one new path you have obtained from the question burst process. The results. After doing the process with more than 10,000 leaders everywhere in the world, including but not limited to at firms like Chanel, Disney, and Salesforce, Gregerson has collected 1,500 information points and learned that 80% of the people who shared the challenge felt at least a little bit better mentally. And that's not insignificant, he says. There's been amazing work done by Harvard Company School professor Teresa Amabile in Harvard over the decades that says when we are in a positive emotional space, we are more likely to get a whole new idea, and I would say a new question. So this approach essentially helps people relocate to a much better emotion. When people feel worse, Gregerson says it's usually because they realize that they're more of the problem than they realized, or that the problem is bigger than they thought it was. Both of those things aren't bad, he states. It's better to understand sooner than later that I become part of the issue, and the issue is larger than I thought it was. It just helps me improve it. In 80% of the sessions, question bursts help reframe an issue, says Gregerson. As we try to get a final good answer to a thing we're stuck on, what we are doing is reframing and reframing, he says. The questions are reframing the problem and reframing our questions. It's remarkable that a brief 4-minute period can unlock us mentally and intellectually, and begin us down a somewhat different path. This is not about asking questions for questioning's sake. That is just people attempting to be creative, and they are extremely bothersome, says Gregerson. This is all about asking a lot of questions to find better questions. Chapter 6. How to Avoid Shiny Object Syndrome. As a business owner juggling several obligations, you will likely find that any illness will seriously set you back temporarily while you recover. But there's one that might have powerful, lasting impacts on your organization and extend far past a simple day or more of absence. It's called Shiny Object Syndrome, and if it's afflicting you, you will need to do something about it if you want your service to thrive. Shiny Object Syndrome in action. At its core, Shiny Object Syndrome is a disease of interruption, and it influences business owners specifically simply because of the qualities that make them special. Business owners have a tendency to be highly motivated. They long for new technology and new developments, and they're not afraid to start new projects and create new things. Ordinarily, these are great qualities, but when Shiny Object Syndrome sets in, it forces you to chase after project after job, and change after change, never settling with one option. It's called Shiny Object Syndrome because it is the entrepreneurial equivalent of a small child chasing after shiny things. Once they arrive and see what the object is, they immediately lose interest and start chasing the next thing. For entrepreneurs, rather than actual shiny objects, they may be company objectives, marketing techniques, clients, or perhaps other business endeavors. When the syndrome gets bad. Wishing to keep your organization upgraded and staying abreast of new possibilities aren't inherently bad goals. Having said that, when the Shiny Object Syndrome becomes widespread, entrepreneurs experience some or all of these serious disadvantages. Failure to finish projects. When you get excited about a new task before your first one is complete, you may jump ship before you can see any significant results. For instance, if you invest in a search engine optimization technique for a month or two, then switch to a different method altogether, you'll never ever get to see the long-term advantages of keeping a SEO technique properly. Improperly planning your ideas and directives. Most people with Shiny Object Syndrome tend to focus on the novelty of pursuing a given method or making a particular change, rather than the technique or change itself. For example, they may really love the idea of developing a new product and start work on developing it, but with no long-term game plan on how to follow through on that idea. This leads to underdeveloped executions and latent potential. Burning through money. There are hundreds of technical tools for businesses that are impressive, efficient, and totally fun to use. Regrettably, if you sign up for all those services, or you jump from platform to platform, you will end up burning through so much cash that these tools become extremely cost inefficient. Confusing your staff. You aren't the only one impacted by your choices and continuously rotating momentum. If you change your business's direction too frequently, your staffers will not be able to keep up. They'll see projects they are working on all of a sudden become unimportant when a new detail emerges, or see their goals shift almost unpredictably. With time, this can cause serious disruptions in employee loyalty and performance. You just had the most brilliant idea and you think it is now or never ever that you begin working on it, so you hit the gas and drive with full speed into it. Not some months in and you recognize the idea wasn't as fantastic in practice as it was in your head. But hey, wait, what occurred? Shiny object syndrome, that's all. Shiny object syndrome is what occurred. First, let's get this straight. We've all been there regardless of the field we come from. We see a shiny object and chase it without thinking it through. I've waited over 4 years for news on Sabaa Tahir's novel, An Ember in the Ashes, becoming a movie. But it seems home entertainment giants saw the bestseller novel as a shiny object and instantly claimed that it'd make a film adaptation without first analyzing the idea. Some people say about this syndrome that we fall in love with the idea of something and shirk the boring process of persevering to the bitter end, as Ryan Law, the content strategist at Animals, defines it. So you press the start button without seeing what lies beyond. Naturally, there's a likelihood you end up feeling lost along the way and hit an unplanned stop. The end results, you ask? Wasted time and resources just because you didn't move with a plan to navigate from point A to point B, not to mention the point Z. And normally in hindsight, you recognize that your original plan before you got distracted by the shiny object was a great one, had you only followed through and stuck it out till your efforts bore fruit. Shiny object syndrome psychology, diving into the roots. Let's get this straight first. Shiny object syndrome is not a medical syndrome as such. It's a name given to a condition that is pretty typical among several entrepreneurs and creatives. Paymonteai, the creator of Visme, a DIY design tool, suggests the syndrome usually occurs as a result of 3 reasons. You're young and brief on experience, so everything that looks and sounds good appears like it's the best idea in the world. Fear of missing out. You fear you were missing out on success, the trends, and more. You haven't found your true passion yet. These are all sturdy reasons. Our research at F4S highlights shiny object syndrome also originates from high initiation, a strength that's inherent among business owners, leaders, and creative types. Successful business owners have high initiation, that is, they take ideas and run with them. Instead of miss out on chances or linger for others to start, they begin putting the wheels in motion. Yet if the motivation to start has reached giant proportions, it can usually manifest as a lack of focus, something critical in completing the essential jobs needed when getting a venture off and racing. But that's not all. SOS's roots also go into another psychological construct, impulsivity, or tendency to act upon impulse with little to no forethought. While impulsivity is among the significant forces behind entrepreneurial success and creative genius, it comes with a catch. You can rapidly lose control or, like we are talking about, get sidetracked by yet another bright object before you have made any real development. How to tell if you're affected? Shiny object symptoms. Fortunately, self-diagnosis here isn't brain surgery. Run through the following 3 symptom list. 1. You're living the bunny life. You're mindlessly leaping from one task to another, presuming each presents a larger, better alternative for you than the previous. This bunny life was my requirement when I began as a freelance writer. I couldn't select my niche, so I jumped from health science to nourishment to tech, all within 6 months. 2. A sense of obsession and shame drive your pursuit for bright items. This symptom is courtesy of Ryan Law. He discloses, "In the past, I've carried with me this shapeless, uncertain guilt that there was something larger, better, and more amazing for me to work on just around the corner." 3. You see physical hallmarks of the condition. Unused plugins, incomplete courses, and as Ryan suggests, dozens of unused domains, Trello boards, and idea projects full of half-finished thoughts. You might even start feeling overloaded and stressed out by how many projects you are in the middle of without getting any of the dopamine-boosting results of having completed any of them. Did you mark off 1 or all 3 of these tips? Great, let's get you sorted, but before that, let's understand the magnitude of the circumstance. 4 big results of shiny object syndrome. How does it impact you? 1. You do not hit your objectives. When I chase after an intense object without thinking about consequences, what it would take to drive it through to the end, or how the task aligns with my overarching life objectives, I often hit a dead end, and this happens way more quickly than I would like to admit. But that is only one of SOS's natural results. The new idea sucks time, attention, and other resources. Plus, since there's no plan B supported or what you do when you encounter a difficulty or two, you call it quits faster than you can peel an orange. Count this as the leading effect of shiny object syndrome. You can also bet your core value or primary objective in life would suffer as you focus your attention and resources elsewhere. 2. A dish for a health disaster. Since shiny object syndrome and fear of missing out correlate, expect stress, tiredness, and sleep problems on your plate as well, the direct results of the feared fear of missing out. Side note, you are much more likely to experience shiny object syndrome and fear of missing out concurrently if you have a high motivation for distinction. You can discover if that's one of your leading work inspirations and get some professional tips once you take the free F4S assessment. 3. Your productivity tanks. And performance? It takes a hit too. All thanks to your propensity to advance with a venture, read shiny object, after you have invested your time, money, or any other resource in it. Technically, researchers call this tendency sunk cost fallacy. 4. You are confusing your team that works with you. Not to forget, if you're at the management helm, your streak of racing behind bright objects can trigger tension to your employees. You say your primary target is A one day, but the next, you throw a flourishing speech around how the team needs to set its eye on target B as their main objective. As a matter of fact, such trade-off between objectives is a leading cause of work environment tension, according to 41% of employees. Aren't these way too many negative impacts? If you're already just wondering how to overcome shiny object syndrome, you're on the right course. Let's talk about that next. How to get rid of shiny object syndrome? Consider these 4 things first. Fortunately, there's a solution to this wild goose chase. However, before we dive into the ways you can fight shiny object syndrome, let's be clear about a few things first. 1. Understand yourself and the way you work. As an imaginative leader or business owner, it is only natural you feel like your mind is flooded with ideas that ask to be launched. That's the high initiation within you that's hard at work. But you really need to understand more about yourself. Ideally, a mix of initiation, reflection, patience, and dedication is great. Reflection means you stop briefly and think through before you take action, and initiation means you've what it requires to an idea and execute it. But execution isn't all. Do you have what it requires to see the project or idea through to the end? And that's where commitment comes into the picture. Plus, you need some amount of patience to attain your goals. You do not want to overthink every little thing while failing to act, but here are some circumstances where patience comes inconvenient. When thinking about how the shiny object fits into your overarching goals. While screening and repeating your idea. While working to results. Many initiatives require time to nurture, like in marketing, for instance. Changing tactics or abandoning the plan midway will totally kill chances of any long-term benefits, so know this. 2. Understand that not every pattern is the future or next best thing to do. Sure, almost every trend looks legit when it initially hits the spotlight, but not each plan is definitely worth pursuing for your service. This is where it is crucial for you to understand your personal and professional objectives, along with your unique work motivations, so you can quickly identify if a new chance is a good fit for you and something you can actually commit to for a substantial time period. 3. Fear of missing out is real, and you're not fear of missing out proof. Acknowledge and comprehend that you're not unsusceptible to fear of missing out and that you may be chasing a shiny object just because everyone else is doing it. I should too. Paymont contributes to this. You see others around you have success. Social influencers and startup founders are fast to make social updates on how their idea got popularity. Basically, you hear so much about their success that you feel a sense of pressure or motivation that you can do X, Y, and Z too. 4. Hypergrowth isn't king. There's a basic consensus in the biz community that chasing after an idea such as hypergrowth can lead you right into the shiny object syndrome den. LinkedIn CEO Jeff Weiner opines that firms that differ from their core value proposal typically wind up pressurized. Weiner explains they draw resources away from the core, your unique selling point or primary goal, too quickly in pursuit of the next bright, shiny object. But then you really need to draw your resources back from the shining plan to the core in response to market competition. Not only does that hurt your market position, but you end up stressed out and whipsawed. Here are 6 simple steps to prevent shiny object syndrome from winning. 1. Weigh the shiny object. Put on your thinking hat. When an idea first steps through your brain's front door, don't welcome it with open arms. Instead, look it down with suspicion at first. Have a cuppa with the idea and scan it top to bottom before choosing if you should sit with it for dinner. Some choose to call this sleeping on the idea or giving yourself some thinking time. The fact is, any idea that sticks to you post the 24-hour think period is typically worth considering farther. Go on to shift the plan to paper from your mind. But before that, answer some questions truthfully. 2. Ask the right questions so you can see through the shiny object's flesh. Asking the right questions can help you examine a shiny object before you take the ball and begin running with it. Ryan Law advises, determine which projects are the greatest leverage, which will earn the most money or create the greatest sense of fulfillment or most improve your career. Answer that question, and you'll expose the handful of projects that are worth it. Other questions that you could ask yourself are the following. Do I really have the time and resources to work on this idea? How does it benefit my organization or team or customers or clients? Does this fit with my inspirations? Does this add value to my work or does it spit up others' plans? Is the idea's ROI worth making the investment into? Ensure you comprehend the breadth of the work that'll get into this new shiny object before committing to it, and define completion beforehand. Many projects track off into obscurity simply because we never ever take the time to specify precisely what completion looks like, in Ryan's words. If you run a team, you can also let your teammates have a crack at the idea, then go back and reanalyze. What does everybody think? Is everyone on board with the idea? Prepare a reliable pros and cons list to visualize the idea's worth and decide accordingly. 3. Return to your objectives and see if the shiny object suits the grand plan of things. Revisit your objective board. If you don't have one, I suggest you begin with making one so things are out in the open for you to see how the shiny object fits into your big picture. There's another useful way, the Warren Buffett way, to go about doing this also. Buffett suggests a 3-step exercise. He originally shared it with his pilot, Mike Flint. Make a list of your top 25 career objectives, or organization goals in this case. Review this list and choose your top 5 objectives from the overall 25 goals. Start working on the top 5 goals list. As for the staying 20, Warren suggests you overlook them like the plague epidemic. That is your avoid-at-all-costs list. Wondering why? It's to maintain your focus and stop your brain from skittering around the shiny object land. When an occasional idea for something new does appear, run it through your approval survey like the one above and your top 5 goals list. If it seems worth it, sit with the idea and get to know it some before calling the shots. 4. Focus on, focus on, focus on. This someone's carefully connects to reviewing your objectives and is a hat pointer to Ryan. Essentially, what you have got to understand is everything you do has an opportunity cost. Time spent on one project is, by requirement, time not spent on something else. That awareness encourages a ruthless prioritization. You're busy. Realistically, you can focus on a handful of big projects at any one time, and anything else is actively harming the success of those projects. That really clarifies things, doesn't it? The question now is, how do you focus on? Should you return to the drawing board? Yeah, that is one way, but there's another one too. Ask yourself, if I passed away tomorrow, which of these projects would grieve not finishing? At first glance, it may seem a bit harsh, but it is an efficient, faster way to prioritize essential projects in your life. For me, that was having a profession in writing. For Ryan Law, it was writing a novel. 5. Investigate the shiny idea to discover its potential farther. What if a shiny object emerges successful from your thinking time, meaning it makes it through your approval questionnaire and even suits the big picture or top 5 goal lists? Time to host a launch party? Nope. Now is the time when you look into the idea. When you analyze an idea, you put it to roast in your head, where you turn corners and see if it has some potential. But that is all in your mind. Real value appears when you look into the idea. What place does it have in your market? How will your customers respond to it? How realistically can you expect outcomes? And research study if there is a way you can make the idea unique to your organization. #brainstorming sessions for the win. What's more, make certain you're not going after the shiny object simply because everybody else is. Hi, this is your Captain Fear of Missing Out speaking. A caveat. Essential note. F4S research realized that entrepreneur success and spending way too much time researching an idea do not go hand in hand. Fasting to act actually correlates with better startup outcomes. But there is such a thing as way too much initiation, especially if you're not an entrepreneur. And if you're still reading at this point, it's probably fair to presume this is something you're struggling with. An example. I have always been attracted to Instagram for business. It is the extremely definition of a shiny object that keeps turning up in my radar, sometimes taking the central spot, and generally trying to get my attention from the edges. Heck, I even got up one night to create a Trello board filled with cards with my ideas for the kind of posts I could make on IG. A few days down the line, though, I looked into the time it takes to develop stunning visuals, techniques that work on the social media network, and the normal ROI of Instagram for somebody in my field. In the end, I let that Trello board sit there, and I am happy, simply because, reasonably speaking, the endeavor would have been a time waster and psychological energy for me. So I let that idea be. I didn't succumb to shiny object syndrome. Ends up, the world has not been tore apart simply because I didn't follow that one idea. 6. Take your shiny object out for a small drive. So you are seeing potential value in this new idea. What now? Whenever possible, create a wireframe or MVP, minimal feasible item, a little model of the real version, and test it. If you see results, you can scale the process. For example, you think it's a really good idea to offer a totally free course for your audience. So you are planning to develop a completely free online course on, let's say, how not to hustle. The proper way to tackle doing this is writing a post, your MVP, on the topic first. Your post needs to briefly clarify ways to slow down. After that, share this with a group of your trusted audience, see how they react, and request for their feedback. If the reaction is positive and they have questions that suggest they would like even more information on the subject, you can start working on the idea further, creating a course that incorporates feedback from your beta group and goes extensive into the topic. Final thoughts on how to avoid shiny object syndrome. So you have a strategy to conquer shiny object syndrome. However, how do you block it completely? Here's a summary of ideas to get you back on track rapidly. Limit the number of projects you can work on at a time. This way you will not have the mental space to captivate any new idea. Reduce the time you spend on social networks. It can be a very real liar, faking others' success and also inducing fear of missing out. Make a list of effective projects, the stages it went through from ideation to execution to completion. When you have a record with you, you will know precisely how much dedication you need to hold up against difficulties that come as you turn a new shiny object into success. Find your true calling, like Paimon found Visme, and stick with it. Break this long-term goal into short objectives and work on them without looking left or right. Use an app like F4S to help you increase your inspiration for accomplishing goals. After that, even if you do get the impulse to start a random new job, your drive to attain your original goal will hopefully outweigh it, keeping you in the right direction. This has been Focus. Use concentration techniques for a sharp memory. Written by Dave Farrell. Narrated by Doug Green. Focus. Eliminate distractions, perfectionism, and get more done. Written by Dave Farrell. Narrated by Doug Green. Chapter 1. Concentrating makes you happy. It's better for the mind to concentrate on something than to wander. At least this is the conclusion of a survey by 2 Harvard psychologists reported in Science. Whatever people were doing, whether it was having sex or reading or shopping, they tended to be happier if they concentrated on the activity rather than thinking about something else. As a matter of fact, whether and where their minds wandered was a much better predictor of joy than what they were doing. I cannot say I am surprised. Psychoanalysts have used the technique of free association for several years to find the worries and stress and anxieties of their clients. We know that the mind, freed of particular fixations, is free to stress, and there's always something to worry about. The converse is also a reality. A brain that concentrates intently on one thing has only that one thing to worry about. We have known for several years that those who obsess are normally attempting to bind their attention that way, keeping it from straying to other more frightening thoughts. They are protecting themselves from the multiple things they would otherwise flood their minds with. But if you have one thing to worry about and you are making development with it, not just leaving from other worries, you are basically fulfilling what the evolutionary purpose of consciousness is probably really all about. And that feels good. Daniel Gilbert, one of the authors of the research study, said he was shocked by the finding. Our data suggests that the area of the body is much less important than the location of the mind, and that the former has surprisingly little influence on the latter. The heart goes where the head takes it, and neither cares much about the location of the feet. He added, I find it kind of strange now to look down a crowded street and recognize that half the people aren't actually there. That, too, is no surprise for those of us who pay close attention to the unconscious. Not only is the body piloted by programs that operate out of awareness, the mind constantly roams to identify possible threats that could end up being important for survival. So when the brain comes across something useful to concentrate on, stilling what William James called the blooming and buzzing confusion that fills our heads the majority of the time, we can begin to feel effective. We are no longer just immersed in our concerns, but we are also feeling more competent and more in control. That does not always make us happy, but it does make us happier than we were. Chapter 2. Different ways to enhance your focus. When you were a kid, like all kids, you were told many times, take note. Now, if you are old enough yet to have reached senior status, you may have that issue again. Aging procedures make many elders as neglectful as they were as children. Few people have the nerve to tell a senior to concentrate, so you may need to be your own taskmaster. The suggested assumption in all this is that people learn to focus and have to be reminded often to master the capability to concentrate. Over the years, people can enhance their capability to concentrate. The capability to focus is a routine of mind, one that should be obtained through years of being reminded and of doing it. If this practice has weakened, it is not too hard to relearn it. Naturally, with today's school children, it is a completely different matter. Any skilled instructor will tell you that kids' attention periods are awful and much shorter than was common a generation ago. The problem, most likely, is our new age of multitasking, where the continuous flitting from texting to calls to web surfing to computer games and so on is making our children absent-minded. Everyone from first-grade school instructors to PhD candidates knows that to learn and remember things, you need to pay attention. The technique is how to make yourself more attentive and focused. A great book on this topic has been written by Winifred Gallagher called Wrapped: Attention and the Focused Life. What does one do to enhance their capability to focus? It takes the discipline of regular self-reminding. You learn to focus by making yourself do it again and again till it becomes a habit, a way of thinking. Here are some particular tips. 1. Value attentiveness. Understand that you create your personal reality by what you pay close attention to. All of us get much less out of life than we could because we are not focusing. 2. Live in the now. An expert on this philosophy, Eckhart Tolle, says, "The clock's hands move, but it is always now." Get the present strongly. You can't know the future, and you can't redo the past. You can correct for past weak points and mistakes and lower their likelihood in the future, but it has to be done in the now. 3. Be more aware. Consciously take care of what you are doing, why, and how. Understand how you feel. Emotions influence the ability to focus. If how you feel disrupts your concentration, change how you feel. It is an option. 4. See the little things. Develop an eye for detail. See the forest, but also see the trees, and the leaves, bark, insects, birds, squirrels, and everything else there. Notice the little pleasures of life. This teaches you how to focus and makes you happier. Target things that are fun and provide positive reinforcement. 5. Set objectives and monitor your progress. Monitor how you are getting goals achieved and what changes really need to be made along the way. 6. Recognize your targets of attention. Think of what you are experiencing as targets for listening and take psychological focus on them. Targets should be intriguing or have a clear value. If these qualities are not obvious, you must knowingly allow them. Make tough choices about your targets of attention. Take care of those things that serve your own best interests. Choose challenging targets of attention, ones that push you to the edge of your skills. 7. Shut out diversions. Do not be sidetracked by disruptions or mind-wandering. In memory competitions, contestants wear earplugs. Germans are said to wear glasses with side blinders. Some participants face a blank wall. 8. Don't multitask. This is the arch-enemy of listening and profoundly disrupts the capability to learn, and particularly to recall. Multitasking creates a shallow way of thinking that also threatens the ability to think deeply in intellectually demanding situations. 9. Fight boredom. Make your targets of attention more interesting by creating competition or making them into some sort of game. Jazz up dull work by thinking of it in novella ways. Make sure to find ways to change the pace of your attention. Don't let it end up being a drill. 10. Make feelings work for you. Develop a passion for what you experience, as that will rivet your attention. Both negative and positive emotions work. The kiss of death for learning is to be bored and detached from what you are trying to learn. You can ask any school teacher how big a problem that is for so many students. 11. Practice attentiveness. Acquiring good concentration capability isn't much different from developing a very good golf swing. You have to practice. Psychologist Ellen Langer suggests looking at your finger, for example. Attentiveness is cultivated from the more you see. The dirt, distribution of hair, pattern of skin folds, shape of the knuckles, and features of the nail, shape, color of quick, ridges, and so on. Do similar workouts with anything you encounter. You'll find that daily life experiences become more appealing. You will get more out of life. 12. Learn how to practice meditation. See how long you can concentrate on your breathing and keep out all intruding thoughts. Notice all things related to the breathing, but nothing else. Hear the sound of the moving air with each breath. Feel the pulse in your neck. If you do not feel it, scoundrel your neck or lie down to feel it in your back or listen to it by turning your ear to a pillow. Notice the rhythm and the steady slowing down. Feel your clothes shifting position and the stress draining of your muscles, first in the jaw, then in the back and legs. Not only does meditation teach your brain how to concentrate, it also decreases high blood pressure and adds to peace of mind. Chapter 3. Practical Techniques for Prioritization. One of the oldest office struggles is knowing how to prioritize your work. With more jobs to do, nonstop emails, and higher expectations, choosing what deserves your attention can quickly end up being overwhelming. Though mastering prioritization can change your life, knowing your priorities minimizes tension, helps you focus and overlook FOMO, can improve performance and time management, and even assist with work-life balance as you create better limits for your workday. Once you know how to prioritize your jobs and your time, you understand that much of the work that felt urgent does not actually need your attention, at least not right away. But while the aspects of prioritizing your work are easy, for example, know what jobs really need to be done and rank them by significance, it's far from a simple exercise. When top priorities are accumulating, you really need a clear system in place to take you from overwhelmed to under control. In this guide, we've collected the best methods on how to prioritize your day-to-day tasks, enhance your time, and focus on the work that matters most. How to prioritize your jobs and your time. Catch every little thing on a master list and then simplify by regular, monthly, weekly, and everyday goals. Separate the urgent from the essential jobs with the Eisenhower matrix. Rank your daily jobs by their true top priority with the Ivy Lee method. Split the tasks with similar top priorities using the ABCDE technique. Set a productive tone for the day by eating the frog. Cut out sufficient objectives with Warren Buffett's two-list technique. Be conscious of the sunk cost fallacy when selecting what deserves your time, meaning be flexible enough to change your mind and drop priorities. Use time multipliers to make the most of your daily hours. Prioritize your most crucial work at the time of your most efficient hours. 1. Capture every little thing on a master list and then break it down by month-to-month, weekly, and daily objectives. It's impossible to prioritize your jobs if they're all swimming around in your head. Instead, start by getting everything down and organized in a master list. Think of this as a brain dump. You want to get every possible thing that plucks your attention out of your head and into a dock. The tool you use to save these jobs doesn't matter. It could be as easy as a notepad or as complex as a project management tool, as long as it's easily accessible and quickly updated when new concerns come along. Once you have your master list created, you will rapidly see that different jobs deserve different levels of attention. You have the tasks that really need to be done today, the projects that really need to be worked on today or month, and the long-lasting goals that make you feel accomplished and empowered. Working off your master list, begin focusing on jobs by monthly, weekly, and everyday goals. As productivity expert Brian Tracy clarifies, your month-to-month list pulls from your master list. Your weekly list pulls from your month-to-month list, and so on. This way, your day-to-day priorities are always aligned with your larger goals. This prioritization approach also helps combat the completion predisposition, our propensity to concentrate on ending up little tasks instead of working on bigger, more complex ones. When your day-to-day jobs are being pulled from a bigger list, you can make certain you are always working on meaningful things, not just urgent ones. 2. Separate the urgent from the important with the Eisenhower matrix. Your master list helps you understand how to prioritize all your jobs. However, it can still get complex when deciding what needs to get done now versus later. There are some prioritization strategies you can use to separate the urgent from the essential tasks. First, there is what's called the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule, which says that 20% of your efforts tend to produce 80% of your results. Look for those jobs that don't just get checked off, but that bring you real results. The Pareto concept relies on experience. However, what if you are working a new job or just don't know which jobs should be top priorities? In this case, you can use the Eisenhower matrix. Developed by previous U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower, the matrix is an easy 4-quadrant box that helps you separate urgent tasks from essential ones. In fundamental terms, urgent jobs are things you feel like you need to react to right away, like emails, telephone calls, texts, or news, while crucial jobs are ones that add to your long-lasting mission, values, and objectives. When looking at how to prioritize tasks best, ask which one of the quadrants they best fit in. Urgent and essential. Do these jobs as quickly as possible. Important but not urgent. Decide when you will do these and arrange it. Urgent but not important. Delegate these tasks to someone else. Neither urgent nor crucial. Drop these from your schedule as quickly as possible. One of the most difficult tasks here is getting urgent but not important jobs off your top priority list. This is where clever delegation enters into play. Handing over starts with finding the right person and explaining the job properly, but it also includes giving that person enough time and guidance to completely get the job off your plate and your mind. In this case, follow the 30 times rule. Budget 30 times as long as the task normally takes to finish for training. For example, if you have a job that takes 5 minutes to finish, you should budget plan 150 minutes to hand over and train a person new on it. That may look like a lot of time, but over a year, you will wind up saving yourself 1,100 minutes a year. 5 minutes a day times 250 yearly working days equals 1,250 minutes spent doing that job. 3. Rank your daily jobs by their true priority with the Ivy Lee technique. At times, regardless of our best efforts, we end up with a huge list of urgent and important tasks we really need to get done, in which case, we need to find a way to dig much deeper and find their true significance. One of the best ways to do this was created over 100 years ago by efficiency expert called Ivy Lee. The so-called Ivy Lee method requires you to prioritize your day by following a basic set of guidelines. At the end of each workday, write down the 6 most essential things you really need to accomplish tomorrow. Do not write down more than 6 jobs. Prioritize those 6 products in order of their true importance. When you show up tomorrow, concentrate only on the first job. Work until the first job is finished before moving forward to the next one. You should approach the rest of your list in the exact same style. At the end of the day, move any unfinished items to a new list of 6 jobs for the following day. Repeat this thing each working day. Restricting yourself to 6 jobs or less each day produces a constraint that requires you to focus on appropriately and then stay focused by single-tasking your way through your list. 4. Separate tasks with comparable top priorities using the ABCDE method. While the Ivy Lee method is great for focusing on everyday jobs, there's still one part that's unclear. How do you know the true importance of a job? The biggest unknown factor when it comes to how to focus on is separating between jobs that feel like they are on the same level of value. When you're working on complex tasks or handling several roles, the Pareto concept and Eisenhower matrix do not completely cut it. Here's where Brian Tracy's ABCDE technique works wonders. Rather than keeping all tasks on a single level of top priority, this technique offers 2 or more levels for each task. Here's how it works. Go through your list and give every job a letter from A to E, A being the highest top priority. For every job that has an A, give it a number which dictates the order you will do it in. Repeat until all jobs have letters and numbers. Once again, this is a stealthily simple prioritization method. While in most cases it is almost unrealistic to separate between a B1 task and an A3 one, by giving each job several layers of prioritization, their true value all of a sudden becomes much clearer. 5. Do your most essential work initially. And when you have prioritized your most essential work in whatever technique you choose, it's time to actually choose how to attack the day. How you begin the day sets the tone for the rest of it, and often getting a pretty large, hairy, yet crucial job out of the way first thing gives you momentum, inspiration, and energy to keep moving. That is the reason why a huge number of performance specialists suggest spending quality time on your most important task right now each day. Or as Mark Twain notoriously wrote, "If you need to eat a live frog, it does not pay to sit and look at it for a long time." When thinking about how to prioritize your everyday work, try to include one of these frogs at the top of your list. When thinking about how to prioritize your everyday work, try to include one of these frogs at the top of your list. Not only does this get that task out of the way, but it can also inspire you to continue pushing through the rest of your list. As a matter of fact, when Harvard professor Teresa Amabile studied the diaries of numerous knowledge workers, she found that of all the things that can improve emotions, inspiration, and perceptions at the time of a workday, the single most crucial is making progress in significant work. Prioritize a little win early on in the day and you will be motivated for the rest of the day. 6. Eliminate good enough objectives with Warren Buffett's two-list method. It doesn't matter how efficient and effective you are each day if you're working towards the wrong goal. That's why it is a very good idea to regularly reassess your long-lasting goals and concerns to make certain you are still on the right course. Here's one great approach for doing this from billionaire financier Warren Buffett. As the story goes, Buffett ran his personal pilot through this process to help him prioritize his profession goals. The first step is to document your leading 25 objectives. That can be life objectives, career goals, education objectives, or anything else you want to spend your time on. Now, circle your top 5 objectives on that list. If you're doing this now, surface circling before moving on. Last but not least, any goal you did not circle goes on a stay away from at all cost list. Instead of sprinkle working on these goals when you have time, you should actively stay away from them. Those are the tasks that are apparently essential enough to deserve your attention, but in reality, aren't moving you towards your long-lasting priorities. 7. Understand the sunk cost fallacy. That is, be flexible enough to change your mind and drop priorities. As you go through these prioritization exercises, it is essential to remember to be flexible. No one knows what the future holds, and ultimately, focusing on and planning is truly just guessing. At times, you may focus on a task only to have expectations or deliverables change on you. At this point, it is hard not to be dissatisfied, but you cannot let that skew your judgment. Human beings are specifically susceptible to the sunk cost fallacy, a mental effect where we feel obliged to continue doing something just because we have already put effort and time into it. But the reality of the situation is that no matter what you spend your time doing, you can never get that time back, and at any time spent continuing to work to the wrong top priority is just wasted time. Sometimes our effort is better used switching boats than attempting to fix a leak. 8. Just use time multipliers to make the most of your daily hours. Prioritization isn't just about tasks, it's really just about time, too. Working on the right tasks can either give you more time in the future or take it from you. As you learn how to prioritize, be keenly familiar with the effect your choices have on your future responsibilities. The best thing you can do here is to concentrate on time multipliers. Time multipliers are methods or tools that develop more time for you in the future. As management consultant Rory Vaden explains on the TED blog, rather than asking, "What's the most important thing I can do today?" time multipliers ask, "What's the most important thing I can do today that would make tomorrow better?" To put it simply, by thinking about how we use our time today, we can free up our hours in the future. The prioritization strategies we outlined above are part of this, but so is your workplace and routines. By concentrating on the right routines and developing a distraction-free work environment, you give yourself extra time in the future. 9. Prioritize your most essential work during your most productive hours. Lastly, you can supercharge your productivity by combining your job and time concerns together. All of us go through natural low and high of energy and focus throughout the day. We call this your efficiency curve, and you can learn how to find it here. Simply put, there are certain times during the day where you are naturally more efficient. If you can find your peak efficient times and then schedule your highest concerns during them, you're setting yourself up for the best day possible. Top priorities are great, but remember to be realistic about how much work you can actually do each day. When you prioritize your work appropriately, you're ensured to have a good day. Getting to the end of the day and seeing that you've knocked out some essential work is a remarkable feeling, but it's not always possible. Tasks take longer than expected, disruptions show up, and our days get filled with meetings and chats. Therefore, while it's great to know how to prioritize your most important work, you should also be practical about how much can actually be done. That way, you will end the day feeling good about the development you made and like you can step away and take a well-deserved break. Chapter 4. Big diversions that sabotage your entrepreneurial success. Rarely does success come easily in business. Not to be downhearted, but most entrepreneurs who make it have undoubtedly faced a myriad of obstacles along the way. That's just the way it is. Related, interruptions are the adversary of good. 3 ways to minimize them. And what has stunted their development and success along the way has not necessarily been significant barriers or unstable storms. It's been the distractions they have enabled to invade their lives. Those are typically subtle distractions. So entrepreneurs might not even know there is a problem till one day they wake up to see that their efforts have been derailed. The real key to progressing is being able to find some of the most common interruptions and remove them before they penetrate any more. Here are some that I have personally experienced. 1. Listening to a lot of people. I've seen it time and time again. An otherwise intelligent, enthusiastic, and driven business owner with an apparently unlimited number of great ideas enables her or his vision to become clouded by listening to everyone else's viewpoint. Do not get me wrong, it is essential to get feedback. However, listening to too many people is a surefire way to become overwhelmed. It's often the catalyst for insecurity. When you've got too many voices in your head telling you what's right and what's wrong, your own inner beacon of light cannot appropriately shine. Suddenly, you are second-guessing yourself, and your decision-making ends up being hazy. That's why I advise getting opinions and feedback from just some select people whom you trust and know have your best interests in mind. 2. Misinterpreting busyness for productivity. Being productive and just being busy are 2 really different things. Sadly, we humans are hardwired to believe that as long as we stay busy, we are being efficient. Research on this matter from the University of Chicago learned that the belief that being busy suggests success and consistent effort is so prevalent that we actually fear inactivity. The scientists actually invented the term idleness hostility to specify how people are drawn to being busy, regardless of how this busyness can affect their efficiency. I do realize that I've fallen under this trap myself. Sometimes I'll believe that I am accomplishing something great just because I have been working tirelessly for hours on end. But when I look back, my performance was only minimal. Breaking this maladaptive psychological habit is necessary to the long-lasting health of your service. 3. Hesitating on crucial jobs. "I'll procrastinate tomorrow" is a funny line that catches the essence of lengthening crucial jobs simply because they don't seem really enticing at the moment. Procrastination, however, often develops a vicious circle where it gets simpler and much easier to postpone what you should be doing right now. Without keeping this problem under control, you may develop a routine of laziness which can doom your general success. One technique that I've found beneficial is to prioritize my tasks in order of importance and trouble. I then deal with the largest and baddest jobs early in the day when I have the most energy, and save the jobs that are lower on the totem pole for later. Another reason I believe that many individuals postpone is just because they are overwhelmed or daunted by certain tasks. Even so, this can generally be fixed by breaking larger jobs down into smaller, more manageable steps. This technique might be compared to scoring a touchdown in football. If you simply focus on getting first downs, you will ultimately make it to the end zone. 4. Enabling politics to bypass logical decision-making. Allowing workplace politics to remain unattended and get out of control almost guarantees an unfavorable impact on a business's success. This distraction is generally as a result of group members jockeying for power or one person's ego taking precedence over others, instead of keeping the focus on the common good. When this happens, things can quickly take a turn for the worse, and any form of professionalism can head out the window. Unless you're a solopreneur with complete control over your business, you're going to encounter different ideas within a firm. The key to preserving logical decision-making is to keep everybody's efforts collaborated and focused on the supreme good of the enterprise. The Harvard Business Review dug deeper into this topic and talked about ways to keep the office politics from undermining a company. 5. Saying yes to every little thing. Unless you are a real-life variation of Jim Carrey's character in Puppet, saying yes to every proposition or crazy idea is likely to get you into trouble. The bottom line in business is that you can't please everyone. Not each offer is going to be legitimately beneficial. Getting into the habit of excessive people-pleasing, in fact, can be a major diversion and can counteract much of the success you've already earned. Remember that you only have a limited amount of time and resources, and that concentrating on projects and relationships that are going to cause concrete results is what is truly important. This should make it simpler to say no from time to time and to guarantee that you don't wind up in over your head or accepting something you'll later be sorry for. By acknowledging some of the largest interruptions that plague business owners, you're less likely to come down with them. Instead, keep your eyes on prize and achieve more with less lost motion. Chapter 5. Tools that can help you focus. Being your own boss can also result in policing your efficiency. For every hour the typical American spends online, 16 minutes is spent on social network sites, 9 minutes is spent on entertainment sites, and 5 minutes is spent shopping, according to a 2013 survey by Experian marketing providers. Twitter and Facebook are generally more fun than working, says David Ryan Polgar, co-founder of Overplug.org, a website about innovation's influence on life, and author of Knowledge in the Age of Twitter, Amazon Digital Services 2012. He likens digital media usage to dieting and says many of us are mentally overweight, consuming a frustrating amount of info every day. Willpower is not enough, he says. Entrepreneurs should make the most of the available tools that can help you resist temptation. Time tracking and distraction blocking software application can help small business owners improve performance and gain control of their day. Here are 7 programs that will help you be more productive. 1. Rescue Time. Rescue Time is a lot like a performance evaluation you give yourself. The software runs in the background of your computer system, gauging which sites and applications you use most. The time you spend is grouped into categories, such as social networking, email, and scheduling, so you can see how much time you spend doing different kinds of tasks. Every week, you get an email report of your activities. You can also log into the dashboard to get real-time data. Rescue Time works on PC and Mac. The basic version is free, and a premium variation is $6 per month and offers functions such as site stopping and time reports for individual files. 2. Manic Time. Another time-tracking tool is Manic Time for PC, which also runs in the background of your computer, taping your activities while you work. The software application produces a report of applications and websites you use and offers a timeline of your day so you can identify your best and worst performance levels. Manic Time offers a completely free standard variation, and a premium variation is $67 and offers added features like timesheet generation and an inactivity alert. 3. Leech Block. If you need to block distractions, Leech Block is a totally free Firefox internet browser add-on that blocks or allows access to specified sites at designated times. This is an example. You can arrange a time each day to check email, network on social network sites, or catch up on industry news. The rest of the day, these sites will be blocked. You can bypass your settings by entering a password. LeechBlock also keeps an eye on the overall amount of time you spend browsing the sites in each block set. 4. Focus Me. Focus Me is a distraction blocking software with two modes, block mode and focus mode. Block mode will block only the sites and applications that you choose. Focus mode will block all websites and applications except the ones you approve. Focus Me also includes a take a break feature that requires downtime by deactivating your mouse and keyboard for a 5-minute period of time. Focus Me works on Mac and PC and offers a single user license for $18. 5. Switch off the web and Freedom app. If the internet is too tempting, you can just put your laptop computer on airplane mode and shut it off. That is what I do at times. The Freedom app is handy for some people. 6. Antisocial. If your downfall is social media, antisocial may be the resolution. Developed by the developers of Freedom, it's good for the business owner who needs to be online for their company but is easily distracted. The $15 Mac application blocks more than 30 time-squandering sites such as Netflix, Hulu, Facebook, Twitter, and more. The only way to turn it off before the timer expires is to reboot your computer. 7. Self-control. Finally, the ones with little willpower ought to download Self-Control, a completely free app from Mac that will force you to focus. The software application blocks you from your mail servers, specific websites, or the whole internet for a period of time that you set. You are not able to access those sites until the timer ends, even if you reboot your computer or erase the application. Chapter 6. The 3 Ways to Get Even More Done. Understanding the rhythms of your service and creating routines that help rather than prevent your productivity will give you a substantial competitive benefit. I dealt with a firm founder who realized the 3 daily conferences he was having with key staff, a service mentor, and a new supplier were adversely affecting his capability to see into the future. Those conferences were always concentrated on present issues and past events, and he wasn't talking enough about upcoming opportunities and how to get ready for them. While he was already getting a lot done every day, as fast as he eliminated these meetings, his schedule became much more efficient. Choose what you would call a semi-typical day running your business and on paper. Define that day in detail, trying to find a theme. When do you find yourself getting sidetracked? And when you have got your regimen down, consider these 3 techniques to help you focus on, and eventually work smarter. 1. You should use 15-minute increments sensibly. The first most prevalent distraction I see business owners face is rethinking a task they thought about earlier. It's always the small things that distract us most. Maybe you considered making a physician's appointment, or you need to replace the printer in your house office. Maybe there's a monetary choice that you keep delaying for when you have more time to think of it. Admit it, you won't have more time. Rather, get these tasks out of the way. For the next week, keep a running list of the jobs you think about that can be finished in 15 minutes. In a typical week, my clients typically think of 10 to 20 such actions. Being all set with this list of actions implies that you can take care of small tasks while waiting for a visit to start, for instance, rather than losing that time thumbing through Instagram pictures. 2. Optimize your disruptions. The second largest impediment to efficiency is disruption. It's not glancing at a text, reading an email, or answering a quick question from a staff member that's the biggest time suck. It's the amount of time needed to return to what you were concentrated on before. This is exactly why you need to optimize your disruptions. You should save up 3 or 4 things to speak with a person about the next time you see them and ask your team to do the exact same for anyone they talk to or email. Certainly, if something is critical, do not wait. However, you'd marvel how typically these interruptions aren't actually about urgent things. For example, this month, while I was on a 544-mile bike ride through Colorado, I got an email from a team member with 5 questions he needed answered by the end of the week. He interrupted me once instead of 5 separate times, and I had the ability to look after all his questions in one work session at the end of a day. 3. Look into the future. To be productive, you need to look to the future. Open your digital calendar and look 90 days ahead. In 300 to 500 words, Specify what life, work, and health goals you'll have accomplished. Do this again for 180 days and 365 days from now. This practice gives you a larger objective to pursue, which will keep you motivated and fixated on your goals. What techniques do you use to lessen interruptions and get things done? Chapter 7. A few methods to stay focused. This is how you can regain control efficiently. Each of the activities beneath is designed to get you focused on success and give you a faster way to a more productive day. Pick any one of these prompts, grab your favorite pen and a notepad, and watch your day get even better. 1. Create a list of your best consumers. Remember learning more about the Pareto concept in high school economics? If you really need a refresher, it's also called the 80-20 rule, the idea that 80% of your results come from 20% of your resources. That means 80% of your profits come from 20% of your clients, and 80% of your sales originate from 20% of your items. What does this have to do with writing exercises? Create a list of all of the customers you have worked with recently. Get this list to 50 and even 100 names. Then identify the top 10 to 20 customers who bring you repeat organization, refer you to others, and are most pleasurable to work with. In the next month, figure out some ways to cultivate deeper relationships and recommendation partnerships with them. Beside each customer name, write a list of 3 to 5 things you could do within 4 weeks to capitalize on that relationship. For instance, welcome them to a unique event. Subscribe them to one of your preferred magazines as a present. Call to thank them for being a client. 2. Write a letter to a supplier. We live in an acknowledgement-starved society. When was the last time you wrote to a person new to your network? I do not mean an email or an invite to join you in one of your social media communities. I mean a real letter. I have a day-to-day routine. Each day I write one handwritten thank you card to a person I have met, dealt with, or gotten help from that week. I do not expect anything in return. No, I don't include an organization card in the envelope. I simply want to let them know I really appreciate them. You should try this over the next month and see what happens next. With this suggestion, I am addressing a much deeper meaning of what it means to me to be efficient. I know my efforts today may not result in instant new service. By doing this sort of writing, I give those people another touch point. When I go to clients I have advised over the past decade, I have literally seen my cards on their walls or desks. I can't help thinking, on their desk, on their mind. 3. Create an inventory of what's not working. It's time to be honest with yourself, your team, your funders, and your clients. Ask yourself, what is getting in my way of being as reliable as I can be? Write down the answers so you see them in black and white. Once you have this list, you can reach out to a coach or business coach and schedule time for a conversation. By objectifying and then discussing these kinds of subjects with somebody you look to for support, you open yourself up to learning something new. 4. You should write a first draft of a perfect day. I have written things about many ideal days. Days at work, days on vacation, days checking out friends, days racing a triathlon. Then set a timer and for 15 minutes, write things about a day in the future you could imagine going extremely well. What does it look, sound, and feel like? Who is there? What are they doing? Are you wearing a unique outfit? The purpose of writing this in detail is to get your mind pursuing results that might seem fantastic now, but which will come true in the near to long-term future. The energy you produce in writing these things down could just carry you into a more efficient day. Chapter 8. How to get rid of perfectionism. One of the most common difficulties that people email me about, and I myself have had a fair bit of trouble with, is perfectionism. It's a problem that can hold you back in life, not only from attaining and finishing what you want, but at times from even starting, while at the exact same time draining your self-confidence and getting you stuck in a negative spiral where it can become harder and harder to start moving on. So today, I wish to share 6 things that have helped me, and still help me to this day, with this harmful and disruptive thought routine. 1. Go for being good enough. Going for excellence normally winds up in some project or something else never ever being completed. So go for being enough, not perfection. Don't use it as a reason to slack off, but simply understand that there is something called sufficient, and when you are there, then you are finished with whatever you are doing. You should figure out the balance for yourself where you do great and do not slack off, but at the same time, do not get lost in attempting to enhance and polish something way too much. Are you asking me how to get to that balance? Well, I have discovered my own balance through trial and error and experience. 2. Recognize that you hurt yourself and the people around you by buying into myths of excellence. By watching too many movies, listening to too many tunes, and just taking in what the world is telling you, it is very simple to be lulled into dreams of perfection. It sounds so good and fantastic, and you want it. But in real life, it clashes with reality and tends to cause much suffering and stress within you and in the people around you. Damage or potentially lead you to end relationships, jobs, projects, and so on, just because your expectations are really out of this world. I find it really useful to remind myself of these simple facts. Whenever I get lost in a perfectionist headspace, I remind myself that it will cause me and my world damage. Therefore, it becomes easier to switch my focus and thoughts just because I want to keep from making devastating choices and stay away from triggering myself and the people closest to me unneeded pain. 3. Accept that you're human and so are everybody else. Set human standards for everybody and accept that life is a lot like that. Every little thing and everybody has defects, and things do not always go as planned. You can still enhance things, but they will never ever be flawless. And understand that you won't be declined if things or you aren't perfect, at least not by fairly well-balanced human beings, like many people actually are in reality. 4. Compare yourself to yourself. Comparing yourself to other individuals regularly can easily lead to feeling inferior. There will always be a lot of others ahead of you in any aspect of life. So what you have to do is compare yourself to your former self. See your enhancement, see how far you have come. Look back at what you have conquered. Appreciate yourself and focus what you have done and are doing rather than what everyone else is doing. 5. Do what you think is the right thing. So you understand that perfectionism will harm you and you try to stay away from it, but people and media and the society around you have an influence over how you think and feel. One of the best ways I have found to practically lessen that impact is by doing the right thing as much as possible. When you do that, other individuals' expectations have less and less power over you and you take more charge of your life. Because by doing the right thing, your self-confidence goes up and other individuals' opinions about you and life will matter less to you. You have become stronger, more certain in who you are, and you aren't so quickly swayed by external forces. 6. Shape an environment of human standards around you. Feelings are contagious, so is perfectionism. And though you can decrease the impact that your environment has, you can also work at the other end of things. You can reshape your environment by, for instance, lowering or cutting out the sources that try to strengthen perfectionism in you. Take a little time to examine what websites, magazines, podcasts, TV shows, and books you spend a lot of time with. Look at if they have sensible and positive expectations or views on you and on life. And if this is not the case, then decide to spend more of your time with the sources that raise you up and support you. Spending less time with nervously perfectionistic people. And more of your time weekly with people who are attempting to enhance themselves and or are living a pretty good life in a positive, healthy, and relaxed way. This has been Focus. Eliminate distractions, perfectionism, and get more done. Written by Dave Farrell. Narrated by Doug Green. Focus. Improve concentration and memory while reducing the risk of a burnout. Written by Dave Farrell. Narrated by Doug Green. Chapter 1. Improving your concentration enhances performance. If you were trained to focus more, would that really make you more efficient at thinking? This particular question was checked out in a paper in the May 2013 issue of Psychological Science by Michael Mrazek, Michael Franklin, Dawa Phillips, Benjamin Baird, and Jonathan Schooler. These researchers checked out the impact of mindfulness training on efficiency in several thinking tasks. Mindfulness training typically makes use of aspects of meditation to help people be more aware of their ideas and thought patterns. By doing exercises like concentrating on a taste or a smell, people learn how to recognize the manner in which other thoughts can intrude on their present experience. Along the way, this training helps people to learn how to keep from actively reducing thoughts, which can actually make people more likely to have the unwanted thoughts. In this research study, a sample of university students was randomly assigned either to a 2-week mindfulness training class or to a 2-week class on nutrition, which focused on healthy eating. All the individuals there were handed a pre-test and a post-test. They did a test of reading material and understanding drawn from the GRE. They also did a test of working memory. Working memory is the amount of info you can use at the exact moment in order to think more clearly. The more your mind wanders, the less working memory you have available to focus on the task at hand. During the tests, the participants were also asked some questions about their mind wandering. At numerous points at the time of the test, they were halted or interrupted, and they were asked whether they were focusing totally on the test or whether they were having other thoughts that were unassociated to what they were meant to do. The participants that had been given the nutrition class revealed no dependable difference in their performance on either test from the start to the end of the study. The number of mind-wandering thoughts didn't get changed at all either. The individuals who were given the 2-week mindfulness training class improved on both the reading understanding and working memory tests. Their mind-wandering also decreased. Statistical tests showed that the improvement in test scores was related to the reduction in mind-wandering. This research project clearly indicates that when it pertains to clever thinking, you might be your own worst opponent. The troubles you have focusing can have a huge influence on your capability to learn new information and to resolve challenging problems. Your capability to focus is affected by many aspects. Your busy info environment, with repeated interruptions from cell phones, instantaneous messages, and email, can draw your attention from what you are trying to achieve. Aside from that, your own mind-wandering affects your thinking. Mindfulness training like the class used in this study is one component in a program to make you smarter. That training helps you to read more about your own thinking patterns, which ultimately helps you to support more attention. Besides, spend more time controlling your environment. When you have consistent effort to do, turn off your email program and put your cell phone out of arm's reach. Begin by getting rid of the psychological diversions from your environment. The less your mind wanders, the better you'll be able to think more in the moment. Chapter 2. Improve concentration by reducing distractibility. In our research with efficiently aging older grown-ups, we were struck by how often they pointed out difficulty with concentration. 3 out of 4 reported issues with focusing or keeping attention. Karen, 84, started telling friends an amusing story about her granddaughter. Halfway through, she thought of something else to add to the story. But when Karen inserted the new thought, she lost her way and couldn't remember what she was talking about. Will, 81, is standing in the cooking area holding the freezer door open. He can't remember why. This is the 3rd time in the last number of months something like this has happened. The business where Jenny works reassigned parking areas. She now has to park her automobile on the left side of the building and not on the right side where she had previously parked. And once she went to her vehicle after work on Wednesday, There was an offensive note glued to her windshield saying that she had parked in somebody else's space again. Jenny realized she had left her car in her old parking spot for 3 straight days. In the late afternoon on the long drive back home from Florida, Robert got lost following a detour off the interstate. When he stopped at a gasoline station to request help, Robert could not focus his attention to remember the new directions the first 2 times the clerk told him. Things don't secure instantly the way they used to, says Robert. Most of these senior citizens really believed their signs were caused by age-related amnesia. Neuroscientists in Europe and the USA and Canada would disagree. They found out that the attention of older people was more frequently interfered with than more youthful adults, even though they had comparable scores on memory tests. They really believe that some of the memory problems of senior citizens are a result of a growing incapability to suppress interruptions, and this makes it hard to memorize new information and obtain it. Particular situations put older people at greater risk for being distracted. Here are 4 reasons seniors lose their mental focus. 1. Failure to limit competing thoughts. Karen was sidetracked when an amusing thing her granddaughter had said popped into her head while she was telling the story, and once she was absorbed in that anecdote, Karen could not recuperate the main thread. On the way to the kitchen to get some ice cream, Will began thinking of his preferred baseball team's poor start to the season, and that thought blotted out the reason for the trip to the freezer. 2. Failure to reprogram the automatic pilot, erasing old habitual responses and replacing new ones. For example, Jenny's continuing to park in her car in the old space. 3. Tension makes it difficult to pay more attention to new info and remember it. Robert couldn't take in the correct directions back to the interstate because he was upset about getting lost. That made it difficult for him to concentrate on what he was being told. 4. Avoid taxing attention and memory at bottom of your diurnal day-night cycle. The reason Robert became lost in the first place was just because the long drive needed only one simple turn at Route 26 to Columbia, South Carolina, so he didn't bother to write it down. At about 4:30, when Robert was at the most affordable point of his diurnal cycle, and his vulnerability to sidetracking thoughts was at the highest, a highway sign flashed into his view. Route 21 to Columbia, 1 mile. Columbia was his destination, all right, but he didn't think Route 21 looked correct. Suddenly, he wasn't certain it was Route 26 either. Since he had less than a minute to choose, Robert took the wrong road and ran into the detour. What advice is there for people who ask what you can do to lessen distractibility? Here are 4 evidence-based methods. First, get right to the point immediately. If you are narrating, keep it brief and overlook attractive side roads. After this, one thing at a time. On the way to the freezer for ice cream, keep your mind on that task and shut off the other fascinating thoughts. Third, if you must learn new routines, park in a completely different space, drive an unknown rental vehicle, or operate a new software application, reserve time to get to know the new processes and to let go of the old habits. Last but not least, identify those conditions when you are the most vulnerable, having your concentration interfered with. Keep away from depending on your attention and memory to rapidly solve an issue in the late afternoon or when you are feeling stressed. Even though all of the senior citizens are less alert in the PM, it is a great bet that most of them are sharper in the early morning. And you should recognize that you're going to have to work harder to push disruptive thoughts out of your mind when you are feeling tense. It takes remarkably little tension to interfere with your concentration. Reliable thinking depends on the ability to suppress disruptive thoughts, feelings, and old routines. Shutting out these distractions is a keystone of independent living. Chapter 3. The elements surrounding memory and focus. We have the tendency to consider ourselves as being born with a magnificent and detailed piece of organic hardware we call the brain, in addition to an enormous but blank hard disk that we describe as memory. What we end up being is a buildup and culmination of our continuous learning and life experiences, which are added one by one to our memories. Defining memory. Memory is a complex, blank hard disk drive driven by genes, life experiences, learned processes, and environmental elements such as diet, medication, sleep, and living style choices. Working memory is a cognitive system accountable for temporarily holding information available for processing at a moment's notification. It's our short-term storage drive that must be accessed and actively used. It is a part of our executive functioning, which is the cognitive procedures that are necessary for the cognitive control of conduct. Our working memory is critical for activities such as reading, writing, problem-solving, planning, and meaningful verbal communication. Those skills are called upon regularly in everyday life, and their impairment could result in extreme interruption in an individual's day-to-day performance. Long-lasting memory refers to the storage of info over a prolonged period. If you can remember something that occurred more than just a few moments ago, whether it occurred just hours ago or decennia before, then it is long-term memory. Long-lasting memories are usually beyond the mindful mind, but can be pulled into our working memory when needed. Some of this information is relatively simple to recall, though some other memories are much more difficult to get access to. Declarative memory, explicit memory, include facts and events that can be knowingly remembered or announced. Declarative memory comprises semantic memory as well as episodic memory. Episodic memory, memory of specific happenings, such as the memory of your most recent birthday party. Semantic memory, the memory of info that is presented as a truth, for instance, the existing president or the capital of the United States. Procedural memory, the memory of how to do certain things that are deeply embedded and are done without understanding. For instance, your memory of how to swim or change a light bulb. Muscle memory, form of procedural memory that involves consolidating a certain motor job into memory through repeating, which has been used synonymously with motor learning. Visuospatial memory, the ability to represent, examine, and mentally control things. Focus, attention, and distractibility. The term distractibility describes the capability to focus on an activity for a concise period. People who are sidetracked are pretty quick to lose focus as their attention is easily moved. They end up being sidetracked by outside stimuli, and even by their internal thoughts. Negligence can be a consequence of distractibility. Why does this take place? Frequently, when we hear the terms inattentiveness and distractibility, we think about attention-deficient hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, a common behavioral disorder that is often identified in kids and teenagers. We live in a sensory-overloaded society, and a lot of us lose focus and attention because we're simply too overwhelmed by our environment and internal thoughts. Advertising, social media, the internet, phones, and other stimuli are all equally to blame for this. Everything is faster than it used to be. This has advantages too, but it also has a bad impact on our attention span. Our brains are continuously being bombarded with a range of sensory information from our environment, but there is a limitation to how much information, on a moment-by-moment basis, the brain can process effectively. Attention. The brain's effort to focus on the volume of inbound sensory information from the environment, a mechanism by which only the most appropriate and crucial information is focused on, and the rest, the noise, is overlooked. It is very important to be able to identify aspects that take our focus and to develop abilities to improve our concentration, as these can have a positive impact on our memory. Simply put, sharpening our focus and our attention can improve our memory. There are many aspects that can adversely impact our focus and limit our capability to concentrate, which are all connected with memory problems. Sleep health, poor diet plan, dehydration, physical inactivity, appetite, sedating antihistamines, painkillers, anticholinergics, brain fog. Do you ever feel as if you are sleepwalking through life? As if you're going through the motions but are uninformed of your thoughts or actions? Individuals with brain fog often report feeling worn out, trouble focusing, forgetfulness, or hazy idea processes. With brain fog, even simple tasks can become a challenge. Brain fog can produce havoc on your attention, concentration, and memory, which can affect your work efficiency and trigger a rift in your social life. The following are factors known to add to brain fog: pregnancy, menopause, depression or mental health conditions, sleep, medical conditions, lupus, cerebral sclerosis, thyroid conditions, chronic fatigue syndrome, medication negative effects, vitamin shortages, food sensitivities and diet, heavy metal direct exposure. Is your capacity for memory hereditary? Children know how to suck without being taught how to do it. This is a sort of procedural memory, and it is clearly hereditary. The main and a lot more paradoxical question is whether episodic and somatic memory can be inherited. Just recently, researchers have recognized more than 100 genes associated with memory in humans, which have helped build essential connections between gene information and brain activity during memory processing, providing a brand new window into human memory that wasn't there before. The human genome is consisted of roughly 20,000 genes, all of which may present genetic variants or alleles. The various nucleotide sequences of these alleles can alter the messages they encode. Just as some people have green eyes while others have brown or blue eyes, or as some are taller than others, individual variations due to genetic influences are neural and mental. Mental qualities include those associated with cognitive functions like memory, focus, stress response, social conduct, routines, and state of mind. Memories are kept in the brain in the form of neural networks in the cortex, the brain's external layer. The brain deposits particular proteins along the neuron synapses that make it more likely for the neurons to communicate in the future. Though the proteins are usually deposited as a result of learning, it is possible that some of them could be coded for by an individual's genes. So, many different elements can influence gene expression. Diet, including your parents' or caregivers' and grandparents' diet plan, medications, the number of neurotransmitters, chemicals, and even stress can modify our genes, identifying which genes are uttered and which genes are switched off, a procedure referred to as epigenetics. This can contribute to cognitive aging and might explain why certain people develop neurodegenerative disease and amnesia earlier than do others. Poor memory can also be triggered by a variety of things, not just genes. The most common sources of poor memory have a tendency to be from really avoidable conditions: tension, a lack of sleep, distressing brain injuries, poor diet or nutritional deficiencies, psychological health and drug abuse disorders. Chapter 4. Stop pressuring yourself. We are confronted with more than enough tension in life without putting more on ourselves. But that's precisely what a lot of us do, in one way or another, at times without even realizing it. The first step towards relieving yourself is to realize when you could be needlessly making things harder on yourself. Without blaming yourself, why not learn what you can do to prevent all the self-sabotage and be your own greatest ally in stress relief? Here are some of the best ways to make the most of your life and reduce self-imposed tension. Understand high achievement versus perfectionism. Lots of people slip into perfectionistic habits, not seeing that there is a better way to do their best without beating themselves along the way. Many perfectionists on some level believe that they need to attain excellence or they have failed. This belief can't only cause stress, it can actually result in less success than the mindset of a regular high achiever. An important first step is to recognize the difference between perfectionism and high achievement and really understand why perfectionism is more a kind of self-sabotage than an asset. When it comes to stress, do your best is better than be flawless, and in the long run, it's healthier also. If you find yourself emotionally keeping errors you've made, noticing more of what you've done wrong than what you've solved, and getting restless when you do a good but not perfect job, know that there's a much better way. Balance being a hard worker and type A behavior. Striving, can cause less tension if it translates into greater resources and a sense of achievement. Type A behavior, which can be related to a severe version of a strong work ethic, on the other hand, can be tough on your psychological and physical health and also your relationships. Type A people tend to experience health issues to a greater degree than the typical enthusiastic and well-balanced hard workers, and can engage in behaviors that are less than healthy too. You may not have the ability to change your character, but you can soften the edges and move your focus to being more relaxed, and that can make all of the difference. Lead a balanced life. Leading a full life is good, but if you don't live a balanced life, you can feel too stressed out too much of the time. How can you fix a limit between being excitedly busy and overwhelmed? You can start by taking notice of how you feel at the end of the day, at the end of a weekend, when you're about to start a new week with new difficulties, and taking a cautious look at your life to see if you have enough time for keeping self-care activities regularly, consisting of engaging in regular exercise, getting enough sleep, nurturing relationships. Looking after yourself is essential for stress management, and no other objectives should be put above it, or you will not be able to reach those objectives as effectively. Tired people lose momentum eventually. Think like a positive, not a pessimist. Lots of people are scared of positive thinking, comparing it to a mental trick where you disregard important issues or important hints in life, and ultimately make mistakes that bring even more tension. Actually, realistic positive thinking, concentrating on the positive without totally neglecting and failing to deal with concerns that need a response, can help you to be more efficient in your life and less stressed out along the way. One of the best positive thinking methods you can adopt is positive thinking, which is a certain pattern of thinking that permits you to focus your attention on the achievements that optimize your confidence and enable you to do your best in the future. Enable yourself to feel and then feel better. You could have heard that it is not healthy to cram your feelings or to deny that you feel the way you feel. This is very true. While it is essential to find a balance between acknowledging your feelings and engaging in rumination, remaining in denial is not very healthy either. A more efficient way to help yourself through difficult times is to become more aware of how you feel and why by journaling, talking things out with a buddy, or speaking to a therapist if necessary, and after that working toward taking part in activities that will give you a healthy emotional lift and moving on. Accept your weak points and everyone else's. You might have known by the title of this post that a great way to eliminate tension is to just reduce up on yourself. Give yourself a break. You can also ease stress by giving everyone else a break also. Don't take things as personally. Do not keep holding on to grudges, and try to see the best in people by understanding how things may feel from their perspective. Learn how to forgive yourself and others for past mistakes. There are many reliable ways to do this, but the loving-kindness meditation is one that integrates the highly efficient stress management tool of meditation in a way that helps lift your state of mind and helps you relax. It's tough to stop putting pressure on yourself. You may even be afraid that if you unwind a bit, things will break down. However, putting less pressure on yourself can be crucial to feeling better and living a much better life. If you're having a hard time to let go, then consider contacting professional help. Speaking to a psychoanalyst might help you put less pressure on yourself so you can get the most out of your life. Chapter 5. Characteristics and attitudes that increase burnout risk. While many burnout risk elements have to do with job structure and lifestyle factors, certain personality qualities can intensify your experience of tension, making you more vulnerable to burnout. While much of character is innate, it's important to be knowledgeable about how your personal makeup and tendencies can contribute to your tension reaction, so you can adjust what you can. The following personal characteristics can impact your stress level and put you at an increased risk of burnout. Perfectionist tendencies. Striving to do your best suggests a hard worker and can be a positive trait that results in excellence. Having said that, Perfectionism can trigger excessive stress and sometimes be debilitating. What's the distinction between pursuing excellence and being a perfectionist? Perfectionists beat themselves up if everything isn't flawless, whereas hard workers have a tendency to be happy with a near-perfect job well done. Perfectionists sometimes won't even try to accomplish a task just because they are too frightened of failure, which can be described as anything less than flawless. If you're a perfectionist, you should practice forgiving yourself for being an actual human being and congratulate yourself for being great, even when you are normal and human. Pessimism. Pessimists have a tendency to view the world as more threatening than optimists. They stress more about things failing. They expect more evil things to happen than good ones, believe in themselves but not as much, and have other crucial differences compared to optimists. Pessimists cause themselves unneeded tension in many everyday circumstances, which can make them more vulnerable to burnout. Thankfully, optimism can be trained and increased to a certain degree. Excitability. Some people are inherently more excitable than others. They have a stronger and more easily triggered tension reaction. Those distinctions can be observed in extremely young children and tend to be steady over a person's life. There's very little you can do to change your body's chemistry, but you can practice tension-eliminating strategies that can help you calm down when you do get worried. You can also practice optimistic self-talk strategies, which will help you view situations as less threatening. Type A personality. You've probably heard about a Type A personality, but did you know that those with the personality type could be more at risk for heart illness and other health problems? The two cardinal attributes of Type A personality are time impatience and free-floating hostility. Being a Type A character, and even just working carefully with somebody who is, can trigger chronic tension, which increases your risk for burnout. If you find yourself being restless with others and life's minor hassles and having trouble avoiding lashing out at people, you could be a Type A character. Poor fit for the job. Are you detail-oriented, or do you look at the overall broad view? Do you lean toward extroversion, or are you more comfortable away from other people? Do you like structure or choose flexibility? If your life's work needs abilities that fit your strengths, you're more likely to rejoice with what you do. Yet if your character doesn't go well with your job description, you'll feel stressed much of the time and be more likely to stress out. There are several online tests that you can use to reveal your innate strengths and weak points, comprehend how your personality qualities differ from those of your friends and associates, and see how well your choices and talents match up with your job. Absence of belief in what you do. Some jobs are badly compensated for but supply good benefits regarding making a difference in the lives of other people and making the world a much better place to live in. For those that believe in what they're doing, tension is less of an aspect. However, if you do not have faith in your life's work, it is harder to endure the difficulties that come with it. Whether you have become disillusioned with your job, you went into your field for the wrong reasons, your values contravene those of a business you work for, or you never ever truly had faith in what you were doing in the first place, if your life's work disputes with your values, the cognitive dissonance created by doing something you do not believe in day after day can take a toll and cause an increased risk for having a burnout. Chapter 6. How to make your work more enjoyable. When young people are considering their future profession options, they're often provided guidance to follow their passions and search for work that involves passionate feelings and true meaning. However, in a difficult job market, lots of people feel the need to accept jobs that are less than their ideal but will do for now. And this suggests that many individuals are in jobs that they like but don't love, or sometimes don't even like. Do you wish you had a better job? Enjoyable jobs aren't just for the really lucky. Really, believe it or not, most routine jobs can be developed into fun jobs with some tweaking. That is good news for many individuals who find themselves in a hard job environment and may not want to run the risk of quitting a safe job, searching for a job that's more pleasurable. Remarkably, what makes a job fun depends on the individual. and essentially everybody can take steps to make their current job more satisfying to them personally, so different people in the exact same organization can take on different obligations that could complement one another. The desire to make your work more satisfying isn't an unimportant one. Even though fun jobs can contain some stress, people generally find these types of jobs that fit their needs in regard to utilizing their unique strengths and offering the right type of challenge and meaning, included less clock watching, less Monday morning dread, less stress. Plus, because job tension is one of the most commonly experienced stressors, this is plainly something that lots of people face and would like to be rid of. The following steps can help people take their current jobs more fulfilling and less demanding. Find a flow. Think of the times when you experienced flow. You then lose track of time, you feel inspired, and things feel actually easy for you. Is it when you're doing specific activities like organizing people, fixing problems, or embellishing an area? Or in daily life, do you find certain aspects of your day tend to feed you mentally, like when you're engaged in conversation with people, cracking jokes, or spending quality time alone? See if there are ways to work these things into your existing job. Be the office party coordinator, for example, if you love to prepare events. Volunteer to handle dissatisfied clients if dispute resolution is your strength. Maintain a sense of humor throughout the day if at all possible. Jobs that loan themselves to flow are usually experienced as fun jobs. At times, developing flow in your workday suggests including new responsibilities that include the right level of challenge and meaning, rather than switching activities that are less enjoyable for these more pleasurable activities, which are referred to as satisfaction. This can be worth the effort, even if it means partially more work. This type of activity can eliminate tension and include more meaning and enjoyment in your job. It can be well worth the extra effort. Spread delight. Think about ways in which your current job helps people or could help people. We have all experienced sales clerks who clearly hate their jobs and do not want to be there, and sales clerks who require time to speak with us and make our day unique. The clerks who go out of their way to spread joy are providing a very real service, and are also more likely to think of their jobs as fun jobs than the first group. How does your job allow you to touch other people's lives? You might have the ability to share positivity to people you encounter. You could find opportunities to help others by sharing your knowledge, or you could even motivate others. Jobs that make the world a much better place lend a sense of satisfaction and are likely to be experienced as fun jobs. Create some meaning. Use your creativity and share your unique gifts in your existing job, and you could find your experience of your job transformed. You should look at how your job can add to civilization in a positive way and find greater meaning in your work. Focusing on the intangible benefits of work can change most jobs into fun jobs and can decrease job stress as well. Recognize what's contributing to your job frustration. First, try getting a better grasp of what's behind that "I hate my job" feeling. Different people find different things they dislike about their jobs, but usually what people hate most about their work overlaps with the concerns that add to job burnout. Mismatch of skills. If you are overqualified, you may feel bored. If the expectations of you are too high, you might feel overloaded. In any case, these feelings can develop substantial stress. Low control. People need to feel that they have some control over their lives in general, and this definitely applies to jobs. If you feel you cannot control what happens to you at your job, you might find that things feel more difficult. Having even a small sense of control can change how you feel about typical, everyday stressors. High pressure. Are there bad repercussions if you slip up? People typically think that working long hours is the huge contributor to burnout, but operating in a high-pressure environment can really contribute to the tension. Low recognition. Are you acknowledged for your achievements? Are you effectively rewarded for your consistent effort? If not, it normally becomes tough to stay motivated. All of us need to feel that our work matters. How to handle frustration. At times, the best resolution is just to find a new job. However, quitting may not be your best choice, at the very least not right away. Whether your objective is to stay at your job long term or just long enough to find other work, making an effort to decrease tension and increase your overall fulfillment can go a long way. Play to your strengths. To enjoy your job, you should be challenged just the right amount, not too much and not insufficient. Moreover, it's best to be challenged in the areas in which you are strong and at which you naturally excel. Speak to your company about adjusting your responsibilities to match your strengths. Offer to take on new challenges that can help the company, things you naturally enjoy and do quite well, and see if the areas that are excessively difficult could be better managed by someone else who masters that area. Give some thought to what might make your job better and see if you can get consent from your manager to modify your work situation and duties. Keep in mind that while you might not get every little thing you ask for, the absolute worst they can say is no. Look beyond the office for rewarding experiences. If you just cannot appear to find anything at work that makes you feel content and satisfied, look outside the office for some fun and diversion. Sign up to be a volunteer for a cause you believe in. Enroll in a course with a friend. Or prepare some weekend excursions to check out good friends you don't generally get to see. Remember, there's more to life than what goes on at your workplace. Start your day of rest right. A conscious early morning regimen can do wonders for starting your day off on the right foot. Do your best to get a really good night's sleep before starting your day with a practice or activity you eagerly anticipate. Commit some time in your morning just for you. Do you like reading the news after getting out of bed? Would a 10-minute meditation give you comfort to start your day? Or maybe listening to a pretty good podcast during your commute would help you walk into the office with less fear. Remember the rewards. When things get difficult, remind yourself of why you're doing this in the first place. Keep your eyes on the prize and try to recall the benefits you find or used to find in your work. If you are having a tough time, see if you can add several additional benefits for yourself. Give yourself a treat at the end of the day as a benefit for hard work. Benefits can be as simple as treating yourself to a nice meal, to enabling yourself time to do something you enjoy, to spending an evening with some friends. Laugh about it. Finding the humor in your circumstance can turn stress factors into stress reducers, or at the very least it can rob them of their stress-inducing power. Although quick stress reducers can be an exceptional first line of defense against the impacts of chronic tension, they can help you turn off your body's stress response and enable you to face your work from a calm and more relaxed place. Keeping a good sense of humor and laughing can help you relieve stress and stay healthier. Laughter minimizes the level of stress body hormones like cortisol, epinephrine, adrenaline, dopamine, and development hormone, and increases the level of health-enhancing hormones like endorphins. Laughter also increases the number of antibody-producing cells we have working for us and enhances the effectiveness of T cells. All of this makes for a stronger body immune system. Laughter also connects people, and social support benefits tension relief. So, go to a hilarious movie or a funny club with good friends, take a look at a humorous television show, or prepare a game night with good friends who are virtually insured to make you laugh. Practice stress management. If you can alleviate general stress, you will likely feel less overwhelmed by specific stress factors at your job. Solve it to find a form of exercise you love, whether it is biking around town with friends or horsing around at the ice skating rink. No, you do not have to turn to a boring stationary bicycle at the gym to enjoy the stress-relieving advantage of exercise. Learn how to practice meditation and do so regularly. There are a variety of apps that you can get on your phone that make squeezing in meditation even much easier. Learn how to practice deep breathing, which you can do right at your desk when you feel like one huge tension ball. Get support. Be sure you have some support in your life. See if you can organize a supportive network of coworkers to sympathize and congratulate each other on the trials and victories of the job. Or produce a group among your friends beyond work. These groups can work marvels for your state of mind. Decide beforehand if you want these groups to be informational, in which case you are going to want to host a speaker at each meeting, or just an online forum for sharing experiences. Finally, if you feel overloaded and unable to cope, talk to a professional. You do not need to handle an overwhelming situation alone. Chapter 7. Procrastination. Everybody puts things off at times, but procrastinators chronically keep away from difficult tasks and might deliberately search for diversions. Procrastination tends to reflect an individual's battles with self-discipline. For habitual procrastinators, who represent roughly 20% of the population, "I don't feel like it" comes to take precedence over their goals or obligations and can set them on a downward spiral of negative emotions that further hinder future effort. Procrastination also involves a degree of self-deception. At some level, procrastinators are aware of their actions and the consequences, but changing their habits requires even greater effort than completing the task in front of them. Understanding procrastination. Procrastinators are usually perfectionists for whom it may be psychologically more acceptable to never ever tackle a job than to face the possibility of not doing it well. They could be so highly concerned about what others will think of them that they put their futures in danger to keep away from judgment. Some procrastinators say that they perform better under pressure, but although they may have the ability to convince themselves of that, research shows it is generally not the case. Instead, they might make a practice of last-minute work to experience the rush of ecstasy at relatively having gotten rid of the odds. Why do I postpone? Procrastination is pushed by a variety of thoughts and practices, but fundamentally we keep away from tasks or put them off because we don't believe we will enjoy doing them and want to avoid making ourselves unhappy, or we fear that we won't do them well. Most people may also procrastinate when they are confused by the intricacy of a task, such as submitting somebody's taxes, or when they're extremely sidetracked or tired out. What are the mental roots of procrastination? Psychologists have identified various motorists of procrastination, from low confidence to anxiety, an absence of structure, and simply a failure to motivate oneself to complete unpleasant tasks. Research has also revealed that procrastination is closely linked to rumination, or becoming fixated on negative thoughts. Does procrastination serve any purpose? Procrastination is a self-defeating behavior pattern, but it can be viewed as serving a mental purpose, particularly for those with perfectionist propensities, by protecting the person against fear of failure, judgment by others, and self-condemnation. Avoiding undesirable work by dedicating energy to other tasks, like organizing or cleaning up, also helps procrastinators keep from feeling ineffective, though they will need to pay the price for it later. Why are we so sure we will actually do something later? Predicting how we'll feel in the future is referred to as effective forecasting, and people tend to be relatively bad at it. This is an example. Procrastinators may feel bad about not having actually exercised today, but they might raise their mood by anticipating they will do it tomorrow. Hence, they avoid feeling negative emotions in the moment, but make the cycle more likely to repeat. Who is most likely to procrastinate? People who procrastinate, research finds, could hold different values than people who do not. In studies, procrastinators report valuing personal enjoyment more highly than others do, and valuing a strong work attitude less, and are more likely to complete tasks they feel are necessary to them personally than those that are designated to them. Why do teens postpone? It's rather developmentally proper for teens to procrastinate. The passive resistance of holdup is one way teenagers may pull away from parental authority. However, increased independence and reduced supervision also bring less structure and greater opportunity for distraction. And like grown-ups who postpone, teens might come to overestimate their ability to work under pressure and their need to feel pressure to do their best work. The consequences of procrastination. Procrastination might eliminate pressure in the moment, but it can have high emotional, physical, and practical expenses. Students who regularly procrastinate tend to get lower grades. Workers who postpone produce lower quality work, and in general, regular procrastinators can experience reduced well-being in the form of sleeping disorders or body immune system and gastrointestinal disturbance. Procrastination can also endanger both personal and professional relationships. Is procrastination bad for my health? Procrastinating when it comes to somebody's health, postponing exercise and examinations, and failing to commit to healthy eating can lead to a higher risk of high blood pressure and cardiovascular disease. Procrastinators are also more likely to take part in self-blame and disengage from wellness advice, suggesting that cultivating greater self-compassion could help such individuals begin taking better care of themselves. Is there a link between procrastination and depression? Procrastination, avoidance, and rumination are all common signs of depression. Individuals with depression may struggle to prepare ahead, lose confidence in their ability to follow through, and adopt what's the point thinking. The treatment method known as behavioral activation, in which one schedules pleasurable activities that offer a sense of mastery or achievement, could help relieve some of these results. Can procrastinators have effective relationships with non-procrastinators? When a procrastinator goes into a relationship with a non-procrastinator, conflict is practically unavoidable. Each puts a very different value on their time, believes their technique transcends, and struggles to understand the other's motivations. Just like any other conflict, though, stepping back, thinking about the other's perspective, and finding a way to accept it, and someone's own reaction to it, can help keep a couple together. How to beat procrastination. It's possible to overcome procrastination, but it takes substantial effort. Changing a habitual conduct consumes a lot of psychic energy, but participating in highly systemized regimen of cognitive behavior therapy is one approach that has worked for many. In the short term, some cognitive tricks can help people complete discrete tasks. How can I stop procrastinating? Studies based on the Procrastination at Work scale, which determines 12 typical forms of office procrastination, have highlighted some potential solutions, such as adopting timelines that build in time for delay, but not way too much, making an individual obstacle out of mundane tasks, breaking large jobs into achievable chunks you can celebrate completing, and restricting your access to online news and social media. How can a procrastinator change their mindset? When people postpone, their present self advantages by keeping away from unpleasant work, but their future self pays the cost in tension or penalty. Developing empathy for an individual's future self as one would for a close friend, then, can be an essential primary step to ending the routine, because we're less ready to put a buddy in such a disadvantaged position. How can I stop postponing important choices? Many procrastinators struggle to make important decisions, in part because not choosing discharges them of responsibility for the outcome. But sometimes people simply become so exhausted from making decisions that it appears impossible to make relatively insignificant ones. Research suggests that sticking to a personal set of decision-making rules, or contracting out some decisions to a partner, friend, or coworker, could help get rid of decision fatigue. Chapter 8. Learn to stop procrastinating. Procrastination silently undermines your opportunities to learn to operate at higher levels of efficiency. Stopping learning procrastination could be amongst your most important self-help enhancement difficulties. When in a learning situation, you can sing the mañana song or proactively cope. Sing mañana, and you enjoy a learning procrastination cycle. That is a needless holdup in starting and finishing academic activities, from learning mathematics to curbing anxiety. Proactive coping is a joint learning process. You learn to stop procrastinating as you chase after academic activities at school, at home, and work. Avoidance is doing something ahead of time to lower the risk of a big problem going on later. That takes extra steps up front. This cost is far lower than walking around the same procrastination revolving door. Let's continue our procrastination avoidance journey by taking a look at a sample of academic conditions that can set you up for procrastination. I am going to follow with 3 strategies you can use ahead of time to stop learning procrastination: accepting uncertainty, turning analysis into action, and dealing with the double agenda problem. Are some learning conditions a setup for procrastination? You want to find out more about art history or how to put together a propane gas cooking grill. You could do whatever is reasonable to get the knowledge or develop the skill. Nevertheless, not all learning goes efficiently. You could feel frustrated following confusing instructions on how to assemble the grill. You really wonder if the authors were pranksters. Learning, disappointment, and procrastination commonly intersect. In school settings, you might have dealt with aggravating learning limitations. You're told what to do. You're told when the work is due. You get penalized if you delay. Later in life, this early reaction to learning spills over. You may flinch at learning circumstances that you connect with restrictive controls and draw on a pattern of scholastic procrastination. Like Siamese twins, learning and examination are signed up with. You might connect efficiency scores and grades to your personal worth. This mix can evoke assessment anxiety, followed by procrastination. You could not control some learning conditions, but you can command what you do. You can choose your psychological tools to prevent learning procrastination and to get beneficial new knowledge. Accepting ambiguity. The Greek goddess Athena came to life full-grown and endowed with wisdom. For the rest of us, wisdom is gained through the hard knocks of wading through ambiguity to gain clearness and knowledge. Like Athena, a lifetime of simple knowledge is a misconception. New learning generally froths with uncertainty. It's how you handle it that makes the distinction. Let's presume you are not exactly sure what to do and you anticipate stumbling and fumbling and potentially messing up. Because of uncertainty about managing ambiguity, you are tempted to postpone and you play procrastination tricks on yourself. You tell yourself you do not have the time right now to learn. Maybe you're going to get to it one day. You can also take the alternative course and handle the uncertainty ahead of time. 1. Work at philosophically accepting uncertainty as part of learning in life. It is as it is. 2. A complicated learning circumstance has a basic place to start. What is that first step? 3. Gain more from feedback. What did you learn much from taking the primary step? How can you apply this learning how to the second step, etc.? 4. Give yourself a sometime or activity reward following each 30-hour of learning activity. Take 10 minutes to settle back to reflect and relax, or to have a cup of coffee, or to check your email. That can keep your learning efficiency up. Turning analysis into action. Procrastination prevention includes analysis. Analysis means breaking something down into its parts. Information from this analysis sets the stage for you to organize your resources to stay away from procrastination barriers. Here is a prevention-oriented where, when, what, why, and how analysis. 1. Where questions request answers about places for learning procrastination. Where are you very likely to postpone? Is it at school? Is it at home? Is it at work? Is it in attending to your health? If you participate in health procrastination, where does this holdup occur? Do you delay medical or dental evaluations? When you officially define places, you can formally foment a procrastination avoidance plan and execute it when the time is right. 2. When questions request for answers about your cycle of holdup, do you delay as long as you are able? How close do you get to a due date before you begin? To help prevent needless holdups, set a deadline for beginning earlier. What delayed reward can you give yourself that will stimulate you to begin quicker and finish within a sensible time? 3. What questions request answers about how your procrastination story unfolds? Do you see a learning circumstance as complex? Do you experience a sparkle of stress? Do you fixate your attention on something simpler or much safer to do? Do you tell yourself you'll get to it later and then repeat the cycle? Can you prevent the cycle by switching to an efficient story? 4. Why questions request reasons for procrastinating or the purpose it serves. Answers to why questions help you to identify the underlying causes. Do you put off handling learning circumstances because you feel awkward, uncertain, or rebellious? Do you fear getting a bad assessment from yourself or others? 5. How questions ask you about prescriptions to prevent learning procrastination. If you think aggravation is unbearable, how can you show yourself you can tolerate what you don't like? Resolving the double agenda dilemma. Let's presume that you face a finding out situation where procrastination feels tempting. You want to link a new surround sound system to your television. You buy the system, then duck learning how to put it together. How is this to be clarified? Ask yourself what's going on. Your inner noise could interfere with establishing the stereo. 1. You see this difficulty as too strenuous. 2. You connect learning with disappointment, and you do not want to frustrate yourself. 3. You are worried that if you try, you will flop and look dumb. Bottom line, you want a very good result, but get tangled up with the sound. You face a classic double agenda issue. Your first agenda is to have a great new surround sound system hooked to your TV. At the same time, you do not want to feel uncomfortable attempting to find out the directions and the trials and errors that go with setting up the system. Presuming you want to stop getting whipsawed by the second agenda, solving the dispute takes at the very least 2 prevention measures. 1. Learning how to silence the sound. 2. Learning how to put the sound system together. You are not a blindfolded guess driven by procrastination sounds. You can work your way through the sound interruptions ahead of time. You can get a double reward: less interfering inner sound and a new external sound system. This is an example. If you identify with your learning performances and routinely, then give yourself a bad grade, work at separating your performances from your international worth, and see what the results are. This has been Focus. Improve concentration and memory while reducing the risk of a burnout. Written by Dave Farrell. Narrated by Doug Green.